I'm exhausted though. I'm paying for it. But you're trying to. We do a lot of things.
Like I see that one, I was like, okay, I'm officially
Been crazy, but now I'm like, Luke's is doing this. He has a skin on Friday.
Test.
Got a little bit of echo, Chris.
Yeah, I think I took care of it. Because that's why I was testing. Thank you. It gets terrible if you don't catch it. It's not like Jimi Hendrix or something. We can go ahead and get started. Ms. Huffman will be joining us.
Okay, great. All right, we are going to call the meeting to order at 7:02. We're going to begin with a roll call for the commission members. Commission member Hennis here. Commission member Hines. Here. Commission member Lucas.
Here.
Commission member Whitmore.
Here.
Commission member Alphen.
Here.
Okay. Please take notice that the March 9th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting will be held by electronic means pursuant to the continuity of government ordinance effective October 6, 2021, due to the threats posed by COVID-19 pandemic to the health, safety, and welfare of the public. While some commission members may participate remotely, staff will be present, presenting as normal in the Board of Supervisors meeting room at 150 South Main Street, Lexington 24450. In addition to citizens attending the meeting in person, citizens have several options to view or participate in the Zoom meeting webinar as described below. We will do our best to take citizen comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. One, to join the Rockbridge County Planning Commission Zoom webinar. The link is available on the county website to copy into the address line on your browser. Two, to join by telephone. You may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Planning Commission YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you are calling in by telephone. At this time, we will proceed with the meeting. I will begin with citizen comments. Do we have anybody signed up physically to speak?
No, this would be for anything that's not.
Okay, I don't see anyone. Do we have any written comments?
No, ma'am, we did not receive any comments and we do not have any attendees with their hands raised.
Okay, we will move on to the approval of the February 9, 2022 meeting minutes. We need a motion. Did everybody have a chance to review those? Okay, do we have a motion?
Make a motion with that we approve the minutes as presented.
Okay, a motion.
I second it.
We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Okay, now we are ready for the board report. Staff will give the reports.
Yes, ma'am. At the February 28th, 2022 meeting, the Board of Supervisors approved the Crown Hardwood application as recommended by the Planning Commission. I will add, staff had a recommendation of a additional condition. Some of this was talked about at the Planning Commission, others was not. So the staff's recommendation that was discussed at the Board of Supervisors meeting was, in addition to a hearing to the site preparedness on the site plan reference above, it shall be a violation of the special exception permit for any logs to be displaced from the property during high water or flooding events. So during that first process, we talked about the site. We had a lot of detailed conversation on the site preparedness and incorporating those into the conditions, not only on the plan, but also in the conditions. But staff felt like it would be appropriate to add that all logs had to remain on the property during flooding events. With that being said, the Board of Supervisors did approve the amended conditions to include the site preparedness notes, but they did not feel it was necessary to leave it as a violation if the logs were displaced during flooding events. The second fold on that same February 28th, 2022 meeting was they approved the Thunder Bridge Campground Art Center, Cultural Art Center as recommended, and somewhat unusual, but staff had also the community development staff was recommending that condition number 4 be removed from the condition. The condition stated that the owner and tenant shall not engage in any large scale production. The reason for that recommendation, that staff had that recommendation of removing that, was it was not intended to change what was authorized or what was not authorized, but was to avoid conflict with the number of products and the scale of automation and evaluation each business. Large scale production or even medium scale production was not the intent of the cultural art center use and could be exploited in the future. So we felt that it was somewhat ambiguous to have that large scale production as far as trying to define what that was. We had some of that discussion at the Planning Commission, and then also the fear of it being exploited in the future. So we think I think the cultural art center definition takes care of prohibiting large scale mass production of products. So then at last Wednesday meeting, the TCO meeting, that's the tourism corridor, this TCO approved the exterior plans for Starbucks to be located, hopefully to be located at 744 North Lee Highway. That's the Tractor College Square Shopping Center. The last tenant was Cornerstone Bank. So it's a vacant bank building. And we've been told it's a sort of a norm for Starbucks to be going into vacant bank buildings because of the layout and the drive-through already. The second exciting news from that meeting, the TCO meeting, was the True Hotel is back on, and that's to be determined. Econo Lane in between Patrick Levin's State Farm, former Redwood Restaurant, and Motel 6. Again, to be determined, Econo Lane. The reason that was back on was some proposed color scheme changes, and so the TCO gave the landowner two of the three options that were approved for that hotel. So those both went well. If y'all have any questions on either one of those, the board meeting or the TCO meeting, I'm obviously happy to answer.
Any questions here? No? Okay, so now we're on item number 5, St. Dunstans Academy, 54 Allen Creek Lane, Goshen, Virginia. Application for a special exception permit for a private school in the agricultural and general uses A2 zoning district. So we have a presentation.
Yeah, and then actually I don't have formal presentations this evening, but I would like to share my screen to get an overview of the property. And before I turn the floor over to Mr. Thomas Pickley, the headmaster for St. Dunstans, I'll go over some brief details. This is, of course, a continued public hearing from last month. Mr. Thomas Pickley with St. Dunstans Academy has made an application for a special exception permit in order to develop and operate a private school in the agricultural and general use districts. The properties are under consideration are currently owned by Daley W. and Donna J. Johnson, and that would be tax maps number 9-1-4 and 9-1-1B. Second landowner involved is Stewart B. Jones, and those tax map numbers are 9-A-1, 9-A-2C2, 9-1-1B1, and 9-1-2B2. The Johnson tracts consist of a total of 71 acres. And just to get everyone oriented, if you could follow the hand, these two parcels here with the road frontage along Little River Road are the Johnson properties, and they consist of a total of 71.9 acres per tax records. And the rest of the property to the rear, which is this large tract, this larger tract, and this sliver of land going out through there is considered the Jones, is currently owned by Stewart Jones, and that consists of 193.93 acres total per tax records. With that being said, we know the location of the property. The property is located in the agricultural and limited use districts, A1, and in the A2 zoning district, which is the agricultural and general use district. And per section 603.03-20 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations, private schools are used by special exception. All proposed facilities are located in the A2 zoning district. At the February 9th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting, the commission Commission held its public hearing and during the citizen comments period for that public hearing, expressed concerns on additional traffic associated with the school, access for emergency management, shared right-of-way drive along the Milo property, tax implications, noise associated with it, and potential impacts on adjacent owners. Along with the concerns, they were also expressed support stating that the school would be an asset to the area. So in front of you, we have some draft conditions for that could be utilized for the private school. And I'll go ahead and read those if that's appropriate. The draft conditions are: number one, the private school will be developed in substantial compliance with the master plan for St. Dunstans Academy dated January 12th, 2022, with a revision date of March 9th, 2022, prepared by Fry Associates Architect. And I'd like to take a pause there to explain the difference in the site plan. So the only material, the only change, there was a couple things that added to the site plan. One, the zoning line was added to it. The limits of the floodplain were always on there, but they were not identified. And then also there were some legibility issues. In my opinion, there were some legibility issues. So what we have, the revised site plan includes the verbatim, the exact same site plan y'all had last month. And in addition, on the backside, it's just a zoomed in version of it with a little bit more legibility. The only change to the site plan is if you'll see the new access road before the entrance is in the exact same location, but the proposed access road actually hooked up, if you will, to the existing driveway in front of the Thompson residence. So you'll see they extended that a little bit to the northwest to get away from the Thompson residence. So other than that one change, it's the same. And I do have extra copies of these if y'all, if some public would like. Yes. So number two, access to the private road will be along Allen Creek Road, private road on tax map number 9-1-1B and 9-1-4 as shown on the reference plan. The number three, road and stream crossing shall be designed, built, and maintained to accommodate fire and EMS apparatuses and EMS vehicles, ambulances, I'm sorry. The road and stream crossing will be reviewed and approved by the Office of Emergency Management, Fire Rescue Emergency Management. Number four, the secondary fire lane shown on the reference plan will be limited for emergency purposes only. Number five, all new buildings to be located out of the 100-year flood zone as shown on that plan. Number six, the total number of students not to exceed 60. Number seven, the school will be limited to boarding students only, parentheses, no day students, and limited to 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades. Planned to be implemented within 3 years of approval date. Previously, that was 2 last year, but based on the build out plan, it was increased to 3. Number 9, all trash will be taken directly to landfill and not collection centers or green boxes. Number 10, lighting shall be in compliance with 1303 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations. And number 11, the last proposed condition that could be utilized is approval contingent on VDOT, Virginia Department of Transportation, VDOT, Health Department, Building Department, Department of Education approvals, and the Rockbridge County Office of Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Management. Again, this is a continued public hearing. I thought it'd be beneficial to have Mr. Pickley come back up, review some additional details of the project, and bring you all up to speed on any new information or essentially new information from last month. Thank you.
Mr. Pickley.
Thank you, Mr. Sladen. Members of the Planning Commission, good evening. Thank you for hearing our application again. Future neighbors, it's good to see you all here. I'd like to take a few minutes to answer some of the concerns that were raised at the hearing on February 9th. I submitted a comment response letter to the Planning Commission, but I would like to summarize those comments publicly briefly in under 5 minutes in some of our responses. At our first hearing, I gave an overview of the St. Dunstan's program, its emphasis on prayer, farming, the traditional trades, and a classical curriculum of study. We hope to build a small school for 48 to 60 boys that equips them to live joyful lives and become capable men who use their gifts to fulfill the 2 great commandments, to love the Lord with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love their neighbors as themselves. The boys who earn their diplomas here and take their SATs and their ACTs at this school and fulfill their more conventional requirements will also engage in traditional practices that help them grow up into good men. The call to love and serve our neighbors is one that the boys will learn to answer through practice. The skills and traits that they learn at school, like a strong work ethic and manual competency, mechanical awareness, and farming techniques, will help them give back to the Rockbridge County community directly. All 48 of the boys will be required to do community service, and it's our hope that their unique training will help their service move beyond raking leaves and cleaning up messes. They'll be able to handle those chores as well, but their education should equip them to partner with local farmers, metal workers, builders, and tradesmen on community projects, and give them the opportunity to learn from local experts in their trades. Our community service program and our desire for the boys to learn through apprenticeships go hand in hand. Though our program is designed to be as self-sufficient as possible, we don't plan to be cordoned off from the rest of the Rockbridge County community. We want to be part of the community. We want to help serve our neighbors there. At the last hearing, I heard concerns from some of our future neighbors that the school will disrupt their way of life and the Rockbridge County way of life. We chose our building site so that it would have a minimal impact on other landowners' properties, and so it would remain well removed from the floodplain as shown on the site map that you all have in front of you. The school site is over a ridge from the nearest resident and out of sight from nearby landowners. It's over 100 yards to the nearest dwelling. Our school will be 100% boarding, so there will not be daily student traffic, and we've planned to have our faculty members live there on campus so that they won't have to commute to work and add more traffic to the neighborhood. The 48 to 60 boys who live at the school will go to church in the chapel, farm their own food on site, take their classes in a small set of academic buildings in one central location, and hopefully make a lot of good connections with the neighbors. As with any good building project, there's concern about environmental impact from development. We're very mindful of the need to protect and preserve the environment. We're planning to make this school last for years to come, Lord willing. And we want to improve the land and preserve it, not ruin it. Buildings can enhance a landscape, and attentive stewards make their forests, their fields, their rivers and streams better than they were in the wild, not worse. We plan to have our buildings match the landscape and remain secluded within the woods. The very best way to steward the environment is not to keep young people from interacting with it and give them lectures in a classroom on preservation, but to actively teach them to love the environment, to give them hands-on practice in protecting, preserving, using, and stewarding the land. In nature, as with all good things, familiarity breeds fondness. We cannot teach young people this posture towards the world if we do not immerse them in the beauty and the wonders of the natural realm. We need our school to be in a remote location. It's important for the way that these boys are being shaped and formed. In addition to choosing secluded building sites hundreds of yards from the river and behind the cover of the forest, screened by undergrowth, we will use the U.S. Forestry Department's best management principles to reduce erosion and non-point soil pollution as we build. We also plan to do only minimal excavating and grading on our campus. Our campus building site is fairly level already. We've consulted with Fire Chief Nathan Ramsey and with Russ Orison from Perkins and Orison Engineering, who's here with us tonight, about the feasibility of improving the current driveway to allow for emergency vehicle access. And both have submitted memos determining the improvements to be feasible. We've also consulted with Jeff Loth, a private soils evaluator from Afton, Virginia, who has testified to the feasibility of sewage disposal options on this site. We hope and pray that our school will augment Rockbridge County's rich history of agriculture and stewardship, and that we have the opportunity to be your good neighbors soon. I'd like to take questions now.
Have any questions at this time? No. Any questions? Okay, I think right now we'll call you back up if we need some answers. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so we are going to reopen the public hearing. So at this time, we're going to reopen the public hearing. Is there anyone physically present who would like to speak?
We do have a few signed up. Yes, ma'am. The first is Winston Campbell.
Okay, and if you will, please keep your comments to 3 minutes and give us your name and your magisterial district. And our little timer is not working, so he's going to use his gavel just to give you a heads up.
What I'll do is I'll knock when you're at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I'll just knock twice, and then when you're 3 minutes, I'll knock 3 times.
Okay.
Try to keep it as quiet as possible.
Okay.
Apologize, not sure what's going on with this thing.
Winston Campbell,
Okay.
Walker Creek District. I'm next door to this wonderful place that's being built. We have petitions that was sent to you,
Yes.
y'all, that represents every landowner next door except one. And that man said, I'm neutral. Don't count me either way. And all the rest of them said, don't build it here. So I don't know what else you need to know. They're gonna build a subdivision, 10 houses, 10 or 12 other buildings, and a large meeting home. You can't do that between two trees. It's not possible. Once they put a bulldozer in there, you've lost the beauty of the land and you've lost the wildlife and the wildlife next door. When you put 100 people down there, and that's what it's gonna be, 60 boys and 10 families. So we're talking about 100 people down there daily, all the time. The wildlife won't stay, and it won't even stay next door. They got 270 acres, I think they want. And if you go look at it, there's less than 20 acres that's tillable. And 5 of them is in the floodplain. So I don't know where we're gonna grow all these crops and vegetables and wonderful things to eat for 100 people. It ain't there. Can't be there. They train these kids, they say no phones, no computers. They go take them through high school that way. How many people in this room under 50 make a living without using a computer? The kids are gonna be lost before they get out of there. They may have learned some things, but they won't be able to make a living. And I don't understand why the county is even interested in giving up close to 300 acres over the tax bracket. I know the neighbors is probably gonna have to make up the difference, but we don't even want it there, so we shouldn't have to make up the difference. And there's no way it can increase our value of the land around it.
30 seconds.
I'm done.
All right, I appreciate it.
Thank you,
for
Mr.
your
Campbell.
time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Next up is Crystal Kaufman.
Good evening, members of the Board and Zoning Commission. My name is Crystal Kaufman. I'm in the Walkers District. I own land right next to where they want to put the school. Please deny the rezoning of the 262 acres in Walkers Creek District, currently zoned as agricultural and general uses. St. Dunstan's application does not provide the necessary documentation or evidence that this endeavor would be successful. Even after viewing the website for St. Dunstan's and information provided on the plan, it is at best naive and destined to fail. I have been in public education for 23 years. Currently, I am a building administrator for the last 9 years and have been in private education for 2 additional years. My private school experience was spent building, opening, and teaching in a Christian school in Stanton from 2000 to 2002. I know a little something about private school and public. In section 4 of the proposal, St. Dunstan's talks about preserving and maintaining the rural character of the land in line with the comprehensive plan of the counties. This is in direct contradiction to what preservation looks like when a building with bunkhouses and faculty family dwellings for 48 to 60 young boys between the ages of 14 and 18. The property will be more like a subdivision if you vote to approve the rezoning. The pictures provided for the building dwellings are quote from the plan, subject to change per section 5 of the proposal for St. Dunstan's. To address the response in comment 4 from Mr. Pickley about daily farming absent from most high schools, that might be true in other areas, but FFA has a strong presence in our local high schools. Concerns about septic and water systems. I heard that the soil is a good place. Well, that's not enough information. We have no evidence of the financial support of St. Dunstan's except for the website accepting donations without any information on tax deductions or 503 nonprofit status. The St. Dunstan's hopes that students will return, this is in their plan, in the future upon graduation or return from college and would be productive citizens for Rockbridge County. How will a non-accredited private school provide credentials for future employable citizens? A diploma or equivalent is still required to work in most industries. Frankly, as an educator who has done the work to be licensed, not just once, but every 5 years for 25 years, I'm a little insulted to think that this board does not value a high-quality education or educators who work tirelessly in the public school system daily. To provide rezoning to open a private school without accreditation or even a well-designed plan is irresponsible. The county, the school board, and all current landowners and current residents have worked too hard for this. Please deny the rezoning of the Walker Creek property to St. Dunstan's.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kaufman. Okay,
Next signed up is Lisa Milo.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm Lisa Milo, and my husband and I's property are neighboring properties to the proposed site for St. Dunstan's. We will actually share a road with those building sites. Although Mr. Pickley has stated that he is not going to tear up the land, I don't know how, with 21 buildings going up and a large community going in, and that's going to take some large equipment to build those buildings. You will have to remove trees, soil will be displaced, rock will be displaced, and all of that will change that beautiful forested area forever. The small shared one-lane road between our property and Mr. Pickley's planned proposed building site would surely change with all of the students that have to come in, the faculty, the families, and any other emergency vehicles that may have to use that area. Again, this presents not only a disruption to our property, to our neighbor's property, but also to the wildlife and the beautiful area that's there, including the river, the Little Calf Pasture River. The proposal does not provide any or much information on how electricity will be brought down to that area, since there is none in that area at the proposed site. And we haven't heard much on the plans for sanitation, farming, fencing, and the roadways. All of these necessary items, again, will change the land forever and the wildlife forever. We bought this property because of its beauty, because of its wildlife, because of its forested area, and it was in agricultural land use. We now have 4 generations of my family using this property for hiking, picnicking, enjoying the river, and actually enjoying a lot of the wildlife that is out there. We appreciate your county for treasuring natural areas and maintaining the beauty of this rural community. We would ask that you decline this proposal to put in this community of 21 buildings, 60 plus people that would reside in this area 10 plus months of the year. We hope that you will take into our consideration all the problems and things that we're concerned about and maintain the beauty of this area. Thank you.
thank you, Ms. Milo.
Next up is William Beshaw.
Yes, my name is William Beshaw. My address is 172 Beshaw Road, Goshen, Virginia. I am here because I'm a farmer who rents the Edward Parker property next door to this property. Of course, Eddie is extremely opposed to this. He knows it's literally insane what they're doing here. I mean, that's the bottom line. I've been working over the years to try to keep my cattle from going into this property. The boundary between Eddie's property and this property is the middle of the river, which means you're dealing in a floodplain, you're dealing with rocks and banks and steep places. The only way to do it is with an electric fence to keep cattle from going from Eddie's property into this property. So that's the reason I'm here. I have on many occasions in the past, this year it didn't happen, but many occasions in the past, I had to go to that property, get my cattle back. And I'm very familiar with this place. This property was by my father's recollection, or he always called it the Walton place. There was a Walton family down there over 100 years ago. They subsistence farmed there on this entire property, which includes the Milo property. And they basically abandoned it and sold it to the old Lehigh, or it's a Portland cement company, because, you know, they bought a lot of land in the area many years ago. Then since that, the property has been bought and sold by different speculators who some have timbered it, some have just done nothing with it. Most of the time, until recently, it's sold for very small amounts of money because it's so isolated and so unbelievably private and basically useless except for wildlife, recreation. That's it. And now this land is actually a corridor between Black Oak Ridge and another hill followed by North Mountain, Little North Mountain. And so the wildlife is crazy in this place. I've had numerous incidents with things. Milo just recently had an encounter with a bear that was hibernating. One time when I was a young person, I ran into a sea of turkeys down to it. I mean, literally hundreds of turkeys. I was riding on a tractor looking for cattle. Anyway, they need for me to go. But anyway, the question is, why did these people pick this crazy place to put this thing? It's completely illogical. And I have a lot more to say, but I guess I gave you all too much information about why I'm here. But this should not happen. None of the surrounding landowners want it. I mean, they're really, really against it. And I think maybe one has abstained because he doesn't want to step on any toes, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beshaw.
Next signed up is Steve Milo.
Good evening. Thank you very much for hearing us again. I know you heard me speak at the first one. Lisa's my wife. We're the adjoining neighbors. Rockbridge County put a lot of time and effort into coming up with a comprehensive plan and then laid over zoning regulations on top of it. And in this particular district, this is a rural planning area. And it says right in the comprehensive plan is to provide a vehicle by which prime agricultural and forestal lands, mountain areas, natural scenic resources, critical watersheds, river frontages may all be preserved and maintained. That's the point of this area. It's to preserve and maintain. The project you're hearing about now is not going to do any of that. It is going to do the exact opposite. The way it is right now is exactly as the plan and the zoning regs require. It is what was meant to be out there. If you put this construction in, how are you improving land by tearing it out, laying down buildings, putting human people out there? That destroys this natural environment. I haven't heard a whole lot about the sanitation, but I estimate 80 to 100 people on a regular basis out there. That waste has to go somewhere. That is not out there right now. The wells that'll have to be drilled, they're not drilled right now. They'll have to go in. Humans will create trash. That is what we do, unfortunately. That is going to happen out there. The river frontage, again, the idea of this zoning is to protect that. They're going to have 60 boys with almost nothing to do in their recreation. That is going to be that river. That river frontage is going to get torn up. It's got to. I don't even know what impact having that many people in that little creek is going to have environmentally. But again, that's the sensitivity that's why you don't put residences out there. I'm not saying this isn't a good idea. The purpose of this commission is to decide, is this the right place for it? I don't think it is. I don't think it is at all. You heard farmers, local guys that know what's out there to farm. There's not a lot. If their whole tie to this project is to preserve agricultural, they're gonna have to tear up a lot of more land to farm a marginal amount of property. You heard earlier about the educational value. I can tell you SATs and ACTs, which they're gonna prepare the boys for, are not even relevant anymore for almost all colleges. I was at JMU this weekend and I was told that with my son. They don't use those. They look at your curriculum. They look at your grades. They look at what you took. I'm not sure how these boys are gonna go anywhere out of here. But more importantly, there's no foundation for what he's doing. He said he's modeling it on 2 other academies. Those academies are not like this. He says that they're like them, but not exact. Those 2 academies allow boys off campus. This is going to be a monastery of sorts. They're going to stay on campus. And then one last comment. I'm sorry to rush, but I'm getting grabbing. They're going to add community support. They're going to help neighbors. The neighbors are here telling you no. They're here telling you no. So there's no agricultural tie. The community resource and the help is not wanted. And it's, with all due respect, this is a great project. It just doesn't belong where we're trying to put it.
Thank you, Mr. Milo. Thank you.
That was all that physically signed up to speak, but we'll recognize anyone that would like to. If you could come up and state your name and magisterial district and keep your comments to 3 minutes max. And what I'm doing when you get to about 2.5 minutes, I'm hitting once. And when you get to 3 minutes, I'm hitting twice. Our timer's broken. I apologize.
I'm Edward Parker. I border the property. And that property is in a floodplain. I want to read my letter first. As of my last letter, I made it perfectly clear that I'm against St. Dunstans Academy school permit. As far as I'm concerned, there are too many questions and no solid answers. This reminds me of when Obama was president and trying to pass the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. Nancy Pelosi made the statement that you must pass this bill to know what is in it. Well, that's what this reminds me of. To me, this is the same scenario. We only know a small part of what St. Dunstan's Academy wants to do, and nothing is definitive in writing or otherwise. Finally, I, like most of the bordering landowners, do not want St. Dunstan's Academy bordering our property. And I had this to completely support Steve Milo and his letter. And another thing is that it's a nice game area. The land, the bottom land is worthless, pretty much, because it's in a floodplain. My own farm gets flooded when it floods. I mean, it looks like a lake. And it's on about the same level as that is. And a lot of the land is hilly. And then when you cross the river, the land goes straight up. So where are they going to farm? Try, and building roads in there to get trucks or whatever you need to get in there. That's going to just ruin everything. And they don't, to me, they just don't have enough planning. It's nothing, I'll rephrase that. Enough concrete planning. I just like the property to stay like it is. It's farming property, it's ag property. That's the way it should stay.
Thank you.
I think it's a great idea. But why don't they go find a farm, a working farm that somebody wants to sell? To me, that would make a whole lot more sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any others?
Rockbridge, it goes to the Boy Scouts. And y'all know how much trouble the Boy Scouts have had in keeping it clean now. They stay within the limit. And then from there, it goes on to Chesapeake.
Thank you.
And the runoff, we go to Chesapeake.
We have a few others that like to speak. If you come up, state your name, magisterial district.
My name is, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
My name is Philip Schmitz, and I live at 1424 Little River Road and have owned the property for 50 years this year. We don't like things to stay the same, okay? Nobody likes change. And, but if there's going to be change, let it be productive and civic minded and integrate into the community in a productive way. This school isn't a reform school for troubled boys or children. It's not a party school. I don't know how many of the people that have spoken opposition have gone to the website to see what the purpose and intentions of the school are. They should, though. And I did. And it's a school that will have the purpose and the task of building young boys into responsible, resourceful, civic-minded, community-minded young men over the course of their high school years, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades. And the level of involvement between the faculty and the students will be at a very high level. They won't be left to their own interests or pursuits or whatever, where they could get into trouble, with the community. And really the basic tenet of this school is to build young boys into people that are community involved and responsible, which I would think that all of the people that would be neighboring this property in this endeavor would want out of any potential neighbor, whether it's a farmer, whether it's somebody that's retired, or whether it's a boarding school. I think that the tenants of the school, based on their website, could yield potential future leaders in our community and possibly even our country. Okay. And I don't have a problem with that. And I think that the efforts of everybody involved should be on how to make this work rather than it's an inconvenience or it's a change that I don't like. Okay. So that's what everybody should be devoting their efforts to rather than I don't want this bordering my property. I don't want this school as a neighbor.
Thank you. I think that was the 3 minutes. Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much.
I'm in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You have anybody else? Okay, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Trey Bailey, and I live out on Colorstown Road. I want to thank you again for continuing to consider the opportunity here for St. Dunstan's. And I want to say that all the folks who have come out to express their feelings, their thoughts about this project, I just want to say thank you. They're coming out and being involved in the life of this community and expressing their concerns. The fact of the matter is these properties are up for sale and somebody's going to be moving in there. And it may very well be the case that if this project doesn't get approved, that you'll be entertaining some other idea, some other project. And I just wonder if the question of, is this the right place for St. Dunstan's? If that shouldn't be the primary concern. Again, going back to what the gentleman was saying before about how, you wouldn't like to see this property being used for anything and that it's great game property. I think that's speaking from the heart. I think that's honest. I think all these folks have real concerns about what's going to happen with this property that has been bordering them for all this time. And man, I understand that. That makes a lot of sense. And the fact of the matter is somebody's going to be moving in there at some point. So you're going to have a neighbor. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to love our neighbors. And I know that this school has that at the heart of their mission. And so I think we can put aside any concerns that whatever happens on this property is going to somehow create conflict. I believe because we have neighbors who are both farmers, people interested in education, that when they see the work that's being done there, and they know that they're neighbors now, that they'll be able to use their skills and knowledge and abilities to contribute to the success of the project. Anything that could come in there is taking a risk, right? Any new endeavor is somewhat of a risk. And I think we can all imagine what things were like some time ago when the Virginia Military Institute first put in their bid to come to this part of the country. And I think we can all know that there were some neighbors that said, I just gonna do what? Maybe shooting cannons and having all these hundreds of cadets running around and doing drills and training. And well, I think we know how the story goes, right? Rockbridge County is proud of the Virginia Military Institute. It's produced many of America's finest leaders and military officers. And I just believe that this project will invest in this area in the same way. And that years down the road, we can all look back on this and say, you know what? Because this body of voters right here removed the obstacles and allowed this school to come into the area, this is something that we're all very proud of. And I know that the education that's going to be provided there is going to be the type of education. Someone mentioned a monastery. That's in part a good word, because the type of education that they're offering is one that is about what it means to be a human, and the type of education that really built what we understand as Western civilization. And I think that can only work to continue to be in good partnership with the other various types of education that are offered in the area. So I think it's a great partnership.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much. I appreciate that. Hey, do we have anybody else here to speak? Do we have anyone? We're going to take comments via computer, phone, and written comments. Oh, we got another. Okay.
Okay.
I assume yes.
My name is Daniel Warren. I'm a resident of Augusta County. I'm here to speak in favor of St. Dunstans Academy. And one of the things I'd like to do quickly this evening is just to refresh a few things that I'm worried have been either miscommunicated or potentially misconstrued in between last month and now. The first of which is 80 acres. It is just under 265 that approximately 100 people would be living on. For context, Virginia Military Institute is 200 acres with a faculty, staff, and student body of approximately 2,000. James Madison University is 720 acres with faculty, staff, student body of over 25,000. St. Dunstans Academy, of the surveyed 265, which is just under 40% of JMU, JMU's campus is looking at 80 to 100 people. So it is hardly a drop in the bucket compared to what people are calling a subdivision. And that brings me to my next point. This is not a subdivision. And if I can tell a quick personal story, about a mile and a half from my home growing up was a bare area that could have been anything. It could have been a St. Dunstans Academy, which is something I would have dreamed of, something I would have loved as a child. And it indeed became a subdivision that has thousands and thousands of homes, apartment complexes, a strip mall, 2 bars, several gas stations right on the edge of the James River. So what could have been, to echo Mr. Bailey's point, someone is going to move in. And I just want to reiterate that this project is one worth considering because the next project would be something much grander that would indeed tear up the land, which St. Dunstans Academy is making every effort to not do, and would indeed disrupt people's way of life. The last thing that I want to address very quickly is that you will get a diploma the school would abide by that portion of the schooling process. But the concern about the curriculum of St. Dunstans Academy, as stated on the website and in the founding documents that you all have read, would be bathed in the muses and the poets, the great philosophers, the maths, the sciences, everything that they are getting in the public schools, the private schools, and then some. And I just want to say that working at a school in Charlottesville, yes, sir, I have proctored SATs, I've proctored ACTs of homeschool students, some of whom are working from accredited programs, some of whom are not working from accredited programs, but they are there taking the SATs, taking the ACTs, and they go on to be productive members of society as well. So I don't want to get hung up on what the diploma and the curriculum being sticking point, considering that these boys will be given every opportunity and then some to have an education that is revitalizing much of what has been lost in Western education. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Yes. Is there somebody else that wanted to speak? Okay, so do we have anyone on the computer, phone, or written comments?
We do have a few written comments, but first I'd like to have, if anyone would like to speak online, now's the opportunity. If you could raise your hand. We do have a couple hands raised. We'll go in the order as received. Mr. Andrew Johnson, if you could state your name. Already did that. Magisterial district or your current location. I've allowed you to speak, but you're muted. Yep, I think you should be good to go.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Johnson. I represent the property owners. I am Daley and Donna Johnson's son. Very quickly, just to dovetail on the previous speaker, I was mentioned about one of the comments was about, buying a farm and using that. That's one of the unique things about with this situation is the dorms and the living areas are over there on the riverside, but on our side of the property, it is a farmland. Probably about 20 plus acres is in hay fields. There's pasture land, there's barns. Where we kept our tractors, that's where 4 generations of our family farmed. So as was mentioned before, I can understand our neighbors' concern, and I definitely respect that and their opinions. But also kind of keep in mind that across this couple hundred acres that they're looking at, a lot of room to spread out, and it all won't be right there on that side of the ridge where the river is. They'll be able to farm, run tractors all the way on the other side of the ridge. So just wanted to put that out. Thank you to the board for considering this. I appreciate y'all's time and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Next with their hands raised. Is Stewart Jones. Mr. Jones, you are muted, but you're allowed to speak, I believe. But you are muted.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to speak briefly as well in support of the school. My name is Stewart Jones, Walker's District. I own the property that the buildings would actually reside on. First of all, I just want to thank both Mr. Alvin, the Plan Commissioner, Mr. Pickley, my neighbors for meeting with us out there on the property itself. Sorry, I don't have the date in front of me. I think it's the 19th was a Sunday we met. And we actually walked the property and showed our neighbors, especially the ones that are right next to us, Mr. Milo, Mr. Campbell, Mr. Parker, Mr. Kaufman, and showed them exactly where the buildings would be located. And I'm in support of the school because of its mission. I'm supportive of the school because of the location. They've chosen the location because they want isolation, but it isn't a great place as far as the least impact to my surrounding neighbors. And like the Alan said, I do respect my neighbors' concerns and so forth. Change is difficult, but I think you have to look at the overall good the school can bring to society. And really they do want to conserve this property. That means a lot to me as well. I've had this property in a stewardship plan for years since I bought the property. It's been well maintained, but that doesn't mean you still don't clear cut property. I've clear cut several sections over there. So when you say restore the beauty, you know, when you're having a stewardship plan, you still are using the property, and you want to make it better, as they say, than it was when you first bought it. And I believe the school will continue to do that. But again, thanks to everybody for meeting out there. If anybody has any questions about my property, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you very much.
If there's anyone else online that would like to speak, please raise your hand. We'll give that a few minutes. In fact, I have one or two or a few, I'll say, written comments. So we'll check the computer back. First one is dated February 28th, 2022, from John Hoover Hanley. It's addressed to the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors, but it was sent in during the Planning Commission citizen comments. I write from Walker's Creek Magisterial District, 520 Iroquois Trail, Goshen, Virginia. I write to speak against the special exception application submitted by St. Dunstans Academy. There is not a complete environmental impact study to demonstrate the impact of 15+ buildings initially constructed in a floodplain, the impact of erosion from construction, and the long-term realities of flooding, the negative impacts upon farms, pastures, streams, rivers on the west and south sides of the parcels. The runoff will have a negative impact on Allen Creek, the Little Calf Pasture, and Maury Rivers. What mitigation measures will be implemented? Also overlooked is the anticipated 60 to 100 people living there. This is not agricultural. This is a business. There will be need upon increasing numbers in order to have income for the residents and students. There is no demonstration of limiting the number of persons in the future. There is no display of safe placement of a septic system or drain fields to prevent waste from entering the natural waters, particularly during periods of flooding. Where is the display of resources that will sustain the school if the enrollment drops down to 10 to 20 people? How will the land be used if the school fails to develop and left in disrepair? What will the facility remain without laborers of students and serve the stewardship role of agricultural? There's no description on academic requirements for the facility administration that will provide well-being for people and students. What academic curriculum expectations will be required of the school? Through this will not be a public education standards in the Commonwealth of Virginia or in the Rockbridge County school system where there is oversight of the church. How will there be accountability to educate students, will be responsible citizens, and invest in community services and structures? Where is the demonstration that the students will be protected from serving only as laborers with financial gain for an administration? Where is the role, oversight, and accountability? Therefore, I respectfully ask the supervisors to deny the special exception application at this time until St. Dunstans Academy can provide information on these issues raised above. The supervisor will serve in interest of Walker Street Magisterial District if it will raise expectations upon the applicant to address environmental impacts, academic requirements, and contingency plans from limitants upon enrollment, or if their failure to sustain a well supervisor for student body, faculty, and administration. Again, John Hoover Hanley. The next one is from Mr. William Bradshaw, and he was here to speak tonight, but I want to mention this was sent into citizen comments. I had forwarded you this petition that was associated with that. And the second petition I received, I believe, from Ms. Kaufman. I also forward that to y'all as well. So I want to make record of that. Mr. Edward Parker sent his letter in through citizen comments, but he was able to read that. Mr. Jones had sent y'all previous emails. And so I'll refrain from reading Mr. Jones's during the citizen comment. The last one that I have was handed out to y'all that I just like to mention. It's from John D. Adams from Deerfield, Virginia. And y'all have that in front of you. I won't read this because it was not sent in under the citizen comments, but it was given directly to y'all. If you would like, I can read it out loud for the record.
I would really like you to read that.
Okay. It says, Dear Commission, I recently became aware of the application by St. Dunstans Academy for a special exception permit to develop and operate a school in your jurisdiction. Having taught for over 50 years, I naturally became interested in the application. My educational experience includes teaching at secondary, junior college, and university levels. My last 35 years were primarily at James Madison University. I know what concerns your committee must consider, but I will offer my 3 immediate observations. Number 1, there's little chance that St. Dunstan's proposal could hurt the land. The proposed use is fairly certainly not like a toxic waste dump. Number 2, the desire to promote an educational environment to foster godly men to this in St. Dunstan's success will be society's success. Number 3, it is refreshing to learn that part of St. Dunstan's educational philosophy includes a nod to digital poverty. Smartphones and their like do not necessarily make us smart. Thus, I would vote in favor of St. Dunstan's application. Sincerely, John D. Adams from Deerfield, Virginia. With that, that's all the written comments I've received through the citizen comments. I will make note that last week and this week, I forwarded all other comments that we received directly from citizens, other members of the public. With that being said, I will give one more roll call vote, if you will, for anyone that is online. If you'd like to make some comments, now's the time to raise your hand. Give it a few seconds. Not seeing any, I'll turn the floor back over to the chair.
Okay.
That did. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
That was Mr. Milo's. That was forwarded. So I can't
Right.
remember this week or last week, but yes, that was forwarded.
So with no further comments, the public hearing is closed and we'll bring it back to the board for questions, comments. If Mr. Alpin, since you were out there and had a meeting, if you want to share with the board what.
Yeah, I certainly would like to share my thoughts on this, and I'm probably not going to be a very popular guy tonight. Maybe I should have been in Cars Creek District or something, but so with all the concerns that have been aired out here, I really have spent a lot of time on this project. Now I've made probably 6 site visits. I have met with a lot of the people that are sitting in this room. A lot of these questions that are being asked and concerns that are being raised are handled through our process. And most of them, at least a good portion of them, have been answered. Erosion and sediment, septic, all of that's just something that we deal with on a daily basis. And I realize it is a strong concern of all of yours. I feel like the benefits of the project outweigh the problems that could arise. I am in favor of this project, and that is not an easy thing for me to say, because most people that know me know that I'm a property rights advocate, and I would be your best ally normally. But after visiting, after speaking with Mr. Pickley, after some of my own research, I'm satisfied that they are doing a good job in their proposal. And I'm satisfied that the provisions that we're going to set forth, if this passes, is going to hold them in check to a lot of things. This property, when we make this special exception, it goes with the land. It does not just go with St. Dunstan's. It is continuing with the property. So we have to make sure that we're doing what we think is right and covering our basis. And I think we're accomplishing that. As far as one of the concerns about it being in line with our comprehensive plan, well, it's a use by special exception. So it is in line with our comprehensive plan. That is at least my understanding and the way that I look at it. And I do realize that I am doing something that I don't normally do. But I feel strongly about this project, and I feel that the good far outweighs the bad. I respect every comment that's been made, and I have actually lost a little sleep over this project, and I've done my very best for everyone involved. And if anybody has any questions for me, if I can answer them, I'm happy to. I know that Robert and I spent some time out there last weekend, and I apologize that I hadn't been able to be with everybody, you know, at a different time, but it's a busy time, and I've put hours into this decision. Yes, ma'am. Is that okay? Can I?
We've closed the public hearing.
We
but-
really have closed the public hearing, but
I was just going to speak on a pastor's position. My name is Pamela Campbell. I'm the pastor at Proclaim Ministries. I have done some research back. I am in favor of helping young people, but I'm not in favor of teaching them liberal ways. Now, maybe I'm in the wrong for saying this, but I have seen this church's stamp on Black Lives Matter. I have seen it referred to the people that voted for Donald Trump as racist, and I don't particularly care for that. Just because you're a conservative does not mean you are a racist. So it concerns me a little bit about what they stand for. Now, if they're actually going to teach these children good, godly manners, that's one thing. But if you're teaching them totally something else, then I'm not in favor of it. Thank you for letting me speak.
Okay. Do we have anybody? Robert, did you want to speak? I know you had been out there as well.
I was actually contacted Tim. We kind of got together. Well, I say that it was a joint collaboration. I think we both thought the same thing about the same time, contacted each other. But I was glad I got to go out and look at the property because it definitely laid a little different than what it shows on the map, at least from what I saw. I have concerns. The biggest concern I have with is this property is, it looks like a 3-year-old drew it on a piece of paper with a crayon as far as the property lines go. And that's the best I can say. That's just what it reminds me of. It's chopped up, it's long, it's there, it's choke points down at the one spot where where your road's gonna go in. It's steep going in with the having to put switchbacks in. Right now, I'm just not comfortable with what I'm seeing as far as septic, and some plans for that, to make sure that there's enough room back down in the bottom or down in there to put the septic. It's going to be needed on that property to accommodate the 80 kids, 60, 80 plus people that are going to be in there. Some drawings on roads where it's laid out a little bit so you can make sure that fire trucks and emergency vehicles going to get in there. Despite what I've been told, I still think you're going to end up with some truck traffic in there, some traffic going in there with something as far as food supplies, that type going in there. I still think we're going to see that. And we need to make sure that all that's laid out in place. Mr. Ramsey or Chief Ramsey says the culverts and the roads have got to support a fire engine with 3,000 gallons of water. Okay. How much does that weigh? He didn't tell me anything. I know about what it weighs, but he didn't tell anybody, half of the people in this room, anything as far as the weight goes. So there's some things that need to be addressed, I think, before I'll jump right on board with it myself, because I don't feel like we're there yet. I don't. I mean, you and I see eye to eye a lot, Tim, but like on this, I've got to have a little bit more information, so, in writing. So.
I think that's great. The more information we have, the better the decision.
That'll, and if the citizens have asked for the same thing. So, I mean, we're sitting here and they've got questions that are unanswered. So I feel like it's, we need to do our due diligence in making sure that we answer the questions or get the right answers or not to go, yes, this is a good project and it takes care of and we answer the questions that the folks got, or no, it's not, because it won't work.
Well, I'm going to give you my good, honest opinion, Winston. And I visited this property many a time. I was actually there when it was being timbered during that process. As Robert said, this is a really cut up piece of property. And when there's a couple reasons that I support this project. Well, there's actually several, but one, this piece of property it's a very meandering line property. There's not going to be a whole lot of people that are interested in that piece of property. And when I found someone that wanted to do some good, or what I felt was good, and this piece of property fit their particular purpose, that gave me hope that there was something that could happen to this piece of property. I do realize that the game, we're going to disrupt some game life. That's inevitable, but that's really inevitable with anything that happens there. I like their mission statement, and I like the fact that they took enough time to find a piece of property that lays just like this for their campus to be tucked into this little spot up on the side of a hill that's really concealed very well with what they're going to leave as far as timber and saplings and things like that. I do like the fact, we've talked about the education part of this thing, and parents are going to choose for their kids to come here. When they go to public school, they're going to learn what they're taught. These parents are going to investigate this school and decide whether they want to send their kids there. And I feel like that's a good option. Now, I'm not sold. I am sold on their curriculum, and I'm sold on what they're trying to do. Is this the best spot? Well, it's the only one I've been presented with. And when I weigh it all out and I look at what's here, they've met most of my standards to get this project. Now, I don't deny that there are a lot of concerns, but most of these concerns are going to be handled by us or the other appropriate agencies that look after these things. The septic that Robert has spoke about, it is a little concerning to me that our letter only said that it seemed to be feasible. Now, I do realize that they will have another firm, they'll have an engineering firm that will come up with what this is. And I've had a lot of dealings with that. They will have a designed septic for that property. If they have the money, it will be built. The septic. Those are the things that I found promising about this property, and I feel like it's enough for me to make my decision.
I want to stop. We had public comment, and I just feel like we need to talk now. We've gotten a lot of input from you all, a lot of letters and all that. But at this point, I think we need to just focus on what we need to talk about up here.
Well, that was a very good question. And I really wanted you to hear what I thought about that.
Sure. Okay.
I certainly don't have any problem with what they're trying to do. I commend them for that. I think it's a good project. But I think we've got a lot of unanswered questions here. I mean, anywhere else, if we were going to start approving something, if we were going to approve a subdivision, we'd have a good site plan in place. There'd be a lot of things that would be in place on paper, kind of chiseled in stone, so that Chris and the department, and then if it were to go to the board of supervisors to be approved, would be chiseled in stone more or less. the way it's gonna be built and what's gonna be built and the way it's supposed to look. And right now, it's not, we're not there. I don't feel like.
You have anything?
Just a couple of other questions. I was brought up, where would the power come from? Obviously, that would impact a neighbor. If there's no power on the property, and I apologize, I haven't had the benefit of being out there knowing the property, but so with the idea of the power to run along an access road to get to the site, or it's up to the power company, I'm sure, but I'm just wondering if it would impact any other neighbors, any easements to be required.
Well, getting their power on that property on the front. Right, that's what I was thinking. So
The only thing is, never be good.
A lot of that in the county.
Yeah.
Okay. Do
well,
you have anything? Do you have something else?
no,
I guess not at this time then.
I think, back to the comment that Robert said earlier, that if it was a subdivision that was coming to us, it would be a lot of things set in stone. And I think, back to one of the things, that you all spoke about was the septic, but also made a note here, that the well, how the water, have we done a comprehensive plan on, not a comprehensive plan, but a study on water access? There's rivers and creeks all the way around it, but how many wells are we gonna have to drill? Have they looked at
Gonna
that?
impact,
Yeah, how's it gonna impact the area there? So that, I think I'm like Robert, back to the point of, if it was a subdivision that we were gonna approve or send to the Board of Supervisors, we'd have a solid plan, to work off of, instead of, reference of houses and sizes and, dwellings and things like that. So okay. I'm supportive of it. I do have children that are in the public school systems. So, I do have a son that I think sometimes would probably benefit from some of this, the ideas. And, I try to raise my son the same way of the philosophies that you all are saying. So, but I do see the benefit of the education part. I do worry. I see a lot of kids being struggling in the public school systems. And I see where they could benefit from an education like this, but I also do see where, like Mr. Campbell said earlier, that I do believe sometimes the technology is pushing forward, and I do see where some kids are lost in technology, and I see where some kids need to be limited their amount of technology, and I also do see where some kids struggle to understand the technology. So just on that part too. So I do feel like we need to have a little bit more information on the education part of it. I do like the point that you talked about the SATs and that you do proctor those. So that'd be something that if you could bring back more information on the education part of it.
I would say, Ms. Kaufman addressed a lot of things that me as an educator, I was an educator for 13 years. I'm like, are these people going to, have any accreditation? Who's going to be overseeing what this curriculum is? Is the church going to have any oversight here? I have some concerns about who's going to be overseeing what's going on this property with, 60 kids and 20 adults, 20 plus people, additional people. So those are my concerns. I certainly echo some concerns about shared roads, with the neighbors and the impact on the neighbors. This is an agricultural, I disagree a bit with the comprehensive plan. I think it is about maintaining, our agricultural land. And I think that's a priority for us. And I have 641 acres for sale, and I have lots of people interested in it, and it's very hard to get to. It takes 2 hours or an hour to go 2 miles to get to the property, but a lot of people want to buy that kind of property to put in conservation easement to keep the land. So I think there are other people that, are interested in that kind of an acreage, situation, but just
the road issue with what they're doing and putting a new road in, that part I felt comfortable with, because they're kind of alleviating
You're not going to be having a shared road.
Shared road's done, so it will be could be a shared road, but they're more or less abandoning that part to the one landowner. That's where it's shared now, letting him take it and run with it.
Actually, Robert, we're calling that an emergency access. Am I right?
To be used,
Am I right about that?
Under current draft conditions, yes.
I just.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be their main entrance in.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's right. I just wanted to make sure that we nobody
not gonna have a shared
understood that
road
we
with
were.
the neighbor.
It as, only as emergency access. That would be it.
A certain piece of it is shared with the Milos.
Mhm.
Right.
I'm not exactly,
Sorry.
I'm not exactly sure to tell you exactly how far. It's not a far piece, but it is a piece.
And I do think about the building on that property, that's going to be pretty disruptive if you're putting 21 buildings on there and you've got trucks coming and going on those roads. I drove out there and it's not an easy, for big trucks to get back there, concrete trucks, drills, all the things that.
Well,
you're gonna
just
need.
so you know, and one of my thought processes on that is they were bringing pup trailers out of there with logs and logs and pulpwood. So it was, what is there now was accessible for that. And so improvements are going to help that.
Okay.
But I understand all of those concerns.
So what is our next step? I mean, it sounds like there are a lot of questions that we still have before we're comfortable with moving forward. I also understand that, that requires St. Dunstan's to invest more money and more planning, more engineering, so.
First of all, if Mr. Pickley could come up, he's going to be part of this discussion. Per section 802.03-3 of the land development regulations, with a special exception, the application shall be sent to the planning commission for review and recommendation. The said commission shall have 60 days within to submit a report. If the planning commission fails to submit a report within 60-day period, it shall be deemed to be approved, the special exception application. With that being said, I had some notes here. And we interpret this that as far as the 60 days would start at the date that y'all first hear the application, which would have been February the 9th, 2022. So 60 days from that date is actually April 10th, 2022. Your next meeting is on April 13th, the following Wednesday. So it's not uncommon for us, the county, and the applicant to enter in what we consider a postponement agreement to postpone, and it would be stated that they understand that this agreement, the request for postponement, essentially would supersede 802.03-3. So with that being said, I did not have an opportunity to talk with Mr. Pickley about a potential agreement to postpone the application until essentially the April 10th, 2022 date would be the next hearing.
Well, and I would think we would need to give some specific things that need to happen
Yes.
between now and then that would satisfy, the septic or the well, or, whatever the other things are, instead of just kind of leaving ambiguous about what we're looking for.
Yes, ma'am. So the first point of discussion is the willingness to enter an agreement to postpone taking action, essentially.
Right.
Do I need to make that decision right now? And I ask because I need to talk with the sellers of these properties to see if they're willing to extend our study period.
Well, I think the only issue is if we don't take action this evening, then April 13th comes and it's considered to be approved.
Obviously, that's a recommendation. So just for everyone in the public's, the planning commission with special exceptions and rezonings, the planning commission has an advisory role, obviously, and they make a recommendation to the supervisors. With that being said, that my interpretation of this, it would be a recommended approval of the special exception with failing to act within 60
I don't
days.
think anybody, I don't think we're ready. I don't think we want that to happen. So, I mean, basically what we're facing is you either say, yes, we're okay with extending 3 days, or go ahead and make a recommendation, which is, I think, to say no. Is basically where we are with that.
Okay, it would just be a 3-day extension.
Yeah, it's from the April 10th to the 13th, which is when our next meeting is. The 60 days would have been April 10th, so that would make our next meeting is April 13th.
Is that how long the extension would be? Just
3 days.
Well, it would deem to be approved on April 10th. So we would not, just to be clear, we would not rehear, the public hearing's open and closed. So there's no requirement to re-advertise. But what we're saying is the planning commission would not take action. They would not make a recommendation until the earliest date would be the meeting on April 13th, 2022.
Right.
So essentially, a month.
It could be longer than that if we don't get everything we need, correct?
Only if he agrees.
Right, only if he agrees.
The-
But I mean-
it would be spelt out. Again, it's not uncommon for us to enter these agreements to postpone, and it would be specified. That agreement would specify the date that we're dealing with. And I assume that date
Talking
would
about
be,
asking for April 13th, but if
Yes.
we don't get all the stuff, we could ask to extend it, or if we had to, make a recommendation one way or the other.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
Let's go ahead and extend to April 13th.
Okay. Okay.
and I'll work with Mr. Pickley on the language of that and some draft language. And generally what I do is and we usually don't do this at the meeting, but I will present that request to the Walker's Creek representative as the district representative, and of course have the chair influence.
And you will give him a list of what we're looking for prior to that meeting.
I think
so that
that's
we can
what
make a better and more informed decision. Once we
Yes, and
have
that's what we
more
need. And
information.
I will say, obviously, we have private schools shall be developed in substantial compliance with the master plan for St. Dunstans Academy dated January 12th, 2022, with a revision date of essentially today, March 9th, 2022, which is the plan that was prepared. And so that's not uncommon. We do not get it's not uncommon to have this scale of plans. It has distance away from property lines. It has the location of the road. It has the locations of the building. It has the floodplain shown. And so as far as I would like to know exactly what you just said, what exactly are we requesting? What I have so far is more information on the educational component and additional information on the wells. And essentially the wells are just that. I mean, and everything has to be approved by the health department. Prior to anyone getting a building permit, you have to have a construction permit for your well and drain field.
And does that have like an environmental impact thing? I mean, is that going to tell us how they expect it to impact the neighbors if you go in and have to drill 5 wells or however many wells,
There are certain setbacks in an agricultural zone. There's certain setbacks from wells from other agricultural activities. That is a component of it. But as far as how this is going to increase or decrease the underground water, no, it would not get into that.
I'll say this, I don't think it'll affect neighbors' wells, but I don't think there's any neighbors really close there. I mean, not sitting next door, I mean, right across the property lines. So, I mean, it's not like you're sitting in the subdivision.
And
drilling
how
wells.
about we talked a bit about the septic system. Do we need more information about that other than the soil test says, we can do that? I mean, we're talking about 100 people potentially.
We're sort of telling him what we want to see, so.
Well, that's why I'm asking
Yeah.
what you guys are
We
asking.
need a good site plan. I mean, as far as buildings, where they're gonna go, grade, some locations. I mean, we wouldn't ask for any less in a subdivision if we were getting into it. Roads, I'd like to know what kind of effect as far as, you got a joint road in there that you're running right now. Half of it belongs to Milo's, the left-hand side, right-hand side going down there belongs to you. What's gonna happen with that road? You're sitting here and you're using that road for 100 people running in out of it, and they're going in there twice a year or twice a month. So who's going to maintain that? What percentage of maintenance is going to be taken up, and are they going to be responsible for? You going to be responsible for? Are you going to pull that road over on your side of the property where you're going to have your road or your half or your part that you're going to maintain there, with them being able to use 4 foot of it or whatever it might be, without having any maintenance on it on their part? Because they're definitely going to have some expense in keeping the road up for the little bit of time that they use it, if it's maintained as a gravel road.
That's an expense the school would be happy to take on. There's a shared maintenance agreement right now, but we'd be happy, if we're gonna be using it so much more than them, I think it would only be just for us to take care of that.
Well, you will be. I mean, and it's just going to be that way. The septic side of things, Tim brought up a good point. You can put a septic field in there. They can get a septic field designed for where you want it to go, but how much of your bottom land down in the bottom is it going to take? From what I understand, you can put a septic field in a flood plain, from what I understand.
That's correct.
Because it's underground, which is not a problem, but you're still going to be, you got 10,500 gallon of water a day, I think is what they were saying. That's a pretty huge septic field, or have to have a pretty good sized field for that. It's not like a house. So, I mean, it's just there's too much stuff's vague like I say, what are the culverts and the bridges or whatever they're going in there have to support? There needs to be a weight on that. If we're leaving it up to it can't be this baby.
Mr. Lucas, did you get the memo from Mr. Orison about the feasibility of the road improvements? Did that
I
make it
saw
into your
some of that,
packet?
yes.
Okay, I think at this point, to go beyond what we've provided, we would have to do a full engineering plan of our roads and same thing with our septic, which I'd have to check with the other people involved with the school to see about doing that. And I think we'd probably be willing to do that, but we don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars on our engineering plans for this site only to find out that we're going to be shot down for our special exception permit and then have lost a lot of the seed money for starting this school. To be just really honest with you. And that's not because we don't want to do our due diligence. We do. That's why we've consulted with engineers, with the fire chief, with the soils evaluators, the people who know this business. I'm hesitant to do a full engineering workup and incur that cost without having a better idea of whether or not we're going to get this permit. But that's up to you all. That's not my decision.
And I would concur that it would be unusual to have a VDOT entrance permit and a entrance permit in hand. It would be unusual to have a road profile. It would be unusual to have them to have an engineer design a bridge. It's all achievable. And we have it in here in the conditions that Allen Creek Road extended road and creek crossing shall be designed, built, and maintained to accommodate fire apparatuses and ambulances. The road and stream crossing plans will be reviewed and approved by the Rockbridge County Office of Fire Rescue and Emergency Management. So though that would be the level, that would be in my opinion, that would be the appropriate
What Mr.
time.
Alvin said is, we have things in place to make sure that those.
Yes,
things are-
I don't think it's appropriate for us to start requiring, if you will, this upfront information. And we do have a schematic site plan. It shows the buildings, it shows the location of the buildings. If y'all want anything else, and so far I have more information on the educational components, more information on the wells, number of wells that could be done. I mean, as far as the proposed, what are you thinking, number of wells in that area? Joint road, what happens to the road use? I think that's a good question. And a septic plan, additional information. That could be, it's going to be a very 10,000 square foot, but you could have a plan that says, hey, the septic field may be located here. It may be located there, so those types of issues, I think
I'd
it's
even like to see that. What are the proposals? Are you thinking you're going to put it in the floodplain down in this area? Or are you thinking it's better over here? And that is not going to, basically a consulting person that's going to come out and you're going to talk about where's the best place to put it, I assume.
So those types of issues I'm tracking, but on my list, I have 4 things that we just reviewed. And so other than that, as far as clear the
anything
direction
else
of
that
what
you
we're
all-
expecting.
I mean, I think that to me, those are my big concerns. That takes care of it for me. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I guess you all will be in touch. And so now we need to make a motion here, I guess, to continue this. or-
No, because we're just not taking action this evening. There's no motion required, correct, Ms. Huffman? Or is there a motion to delay taking action?
Need to make a motion to set it over
Okay.
to the next meeting conditioned on this recent agreement. And actually, if we don't get this request in writing, you all don't want it to be automatically approved for failure to act, you'll have to call a special meeting to address it between now and the 10th.
Right,
That is, if we don't receive that in writing.
That's if you don't receive it in
okay,
writing.
we can do that. All right, so we need somebody to make a motion to set this over to April 13th.
I'll make a motion to set over April 13th.
And I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
I was just going to ask, does that need to be?
Contingent on receipt of the
Contingent on receipt
agreement.
of a written agreement. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yep.
Thank you for everyone's time. We take a 30-second break to allow, everyone can stay obviously for the rest of the
Yep.
5
If
public
anybody
hearings
needs
we
to
have, but you're
take a-
you're more than welcome to get out of here. if you'd like to. Take a 2-minute break.
We don't have 2 minutes.
You need to go.
Yeah, I'm ready to keep going here.
This is the most.
All right, I'm glad I wore a sweater. It was
I'm
very
sitting
cold.
here, I
Freezing.
look at this thing, and I'm
I'm under
thinking,
a hair. I'm under a
this
hair.
is a hill right here. I
know, 'cause I wore this.
This hilltop.
I mean, I specifically
Hey,
wore,
hey, cover the land.
I specifically wore
Yeah,
this. My position.
Little half past the river, and all this is
If
across.
you set up on that
across the river on bluff.
board, it's gold.
Everything's.
Well, that, I mean, he thought I was like,
I certainly understand. And I certainly understand their concerns. I really do. I mean, if I was sitting there, I'd be feeling it too.
That's right.
It's not.
What the impact is gonna be.
All right.
This road. This is this long.
I appreciate you guys coming.
And the road.
Staying involved.
Switchbacks like
Thank
this
y'all.
to top of the hill and then drop down. East. And this road from here down is on shared. There's another road that comes in, goes out here, and comes around, comes over here, and a couple of brick columns back.
Right.
To Mr. Campbell. Where they got this.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, we ready to roll?
See it, I mean, I'm not. Yeah.
Have you been out there? Melissa? Have you had- It's just a true arbors environment. I'm serious, it looks like my grandkids where they're lined up.
You know, aside from.
That would be appropriate.
Nothing going.
All right.
Probably
No.
don't-
Well,
Are they correct? Unless a single family.
Sorry.
Oh.
No, we're starting the meeting. Hey, we're gonna bring the meeting back to order. If everybody could come on back. Mr. Alphen, if you're out there, come on back. Get on with it. I know y'all are all so excited to have been here for all of that. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he said, give him a few minutes. If I need to
Okay.
show back up, I had to, somebody had to go get it.
All right.
Yeah.
No, don't.
He's gonna be sprinting in.
Right or wrong.
Okay. All right, so we are at restarting our meeting here, and we are on to agenda item number 6, which is Stonewall Associates LLC, 80 East Midland Trail, Lexington, Virginia. Application for a special exception permit for warehousing and storage in the Central Business B1 zoning district.
Yes, and I'm going to zoom in on this one. As far as everyone knows, we have Matt Nebram with Modine. He is joining us via Zoom. I think I told him that we could probably get to him about 8 o'clock. We're a little bit behind schedule, but Matt, I'm gonna promote you to panelist, so you can interact with us. Brief discussion on this, or my brief presentation. This is, of course, the Stonewall Square Shopping Center. And Modine has made an application for a special exception for warehousing in the general business zone. So we're all aware where Stonewall Square Shopping Center is. This is identified as 80. It's vacant. It's approximately 40,000 square feet in between the existing Ollie's retail store and the existing Harbor Freight retail store. Stonewall Square Associates LLC has applied for a special exception to utilize approximately 40,000 square foot portion of the existing building for warehousing for Modine Manufacturing. The property is known as Stonewall Square Shopping Center. Property is located at 80 East Midland Trail in the general business section, per section 605.03-12 of the Land Development Regulation. Warehousing business is a use by special exception. And so as far as any proposed conditions that could be utilized for discussion, here. It could be number one, warehousing / storage is limited to approximately 40,000 square feet. And then number two, all loading and unloading shall be done at the rear of the building. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Matt with Modine and ask him to just briefly review the project, any details that I may have missed. And you have the floor.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Chris. Good evening. Thanks for your time tonight. So I'll briefly talk through this request that we've submitted. Modine's excited to be expanding in Rockbridge County. We've made the conversion of our facility on Collegetown Road with the growth to data center market. And this expansion of our warehouse spaces to support our other existing businesses. That product is manufactured in the Buena Vista site. So this 40,000 square feet is really to store finished goods inventory to support the growth we're seeing in our heating and indoor air quality product lines. Additionally, people are familiar with supply chain constraints we're facing. In order to protect our business, we're carrying higher levels of purchase part inventory and anticipate needing space to store those, particularly in our peak heating seasons. So that's really the intent of this request. As Mr. Sladen said, loading likely will be done completely in the rear of the building. And it's my expectation, aside from the truckloads going in and out, our presence will pretty much go unnoticed. Be happy to answer any questions anyone has about the request.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chris, do you have anything to add there? Or?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So now we are going to open this up to public comment.
We have no one signed up to speak, but we'll recognize anyone at this time. Not seeing any. I will go to my attendees. If you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand now. Not seeing any. I'll turn the floor back over to Ms. Dennis.
Okay. So we are going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Do you have any questions here?
What kind of trucks? What kind of trucks are we running in there?
18 wheelers.
Okay. The concerns I've got with that is we're taking 18 wheelers, we're gonna run them into a parking lot full of, that's designed mainly for cars, run them around through the back, correct? Through that front entrance?
That's correct, yes.
And run them around through the back and around behind the building to offload and load product. Cars and trucks don't mix.
And that's the proposed condition. All loading and unloading shall be done at the rear of the building. And of course, with the existing retail operations, including Harbor Freight, Food Lion, and Ollie's discount, there is
Already
a
bringing
substantial
trucks in.
amount
It's
of
the same
18
as
wheelers
theirs.
coming
Okay.
in.
And we're talking about 4 to 5 trucks a day. Was that what I read in his letter? 3 to 4. So that is the only entrance right there. Entrance and exit is the one right there off East Midland Trail.
Yes.
I wondered how they were going to get, if there was going to be a specific, come in that way, go all the way to the end, or.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only problem I've got with it, because cars and trucks don't mix. We all know that. And not in unless they're going to have some dedicated truck lanes, or they're going to block some of the car parking off, or take some of the lines that where they've got a way to get them in that.
They're doing it already.
There are 18 wheelers that come in and out
Right.
there every
But not-
daily, yes.
Right.
But not daily, and not probably as many as they could run in there on that Modine run. I had a little deal with Modine run years back, so I know as far as what they've done. I don't know what they're planning on doing here, if it's finished heaters that they're gonna be running in there, dropping off and going. And company I used to work for, they ran truck steady between Buena Vista and old Kennemetal plant, daily running truck heaters. So that's the only problem I got with this, is how many trucks are gonna be running in there.
So in Mr. Niebuhr's written description, it says for the months April through July, most days we anticipate 3 to 4 truckloads of material being delivered to the site. Other months will have much lower level of traffic. As far as the timing of it, it also details the timing of it, Monday through Friday.
5 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Yes. And I will say that it of course has a full alleyway, and just from living in the area and shopping in the area, I don't recall ever seeing an 18 wheeler being loaded in front of Food Lion, nor Ollie's, nor it would be in the back. So so yes, I assume it's on.
Feeling is this is a great use of 40,000, square feet of a place that's been empty for a long, long time. So, I think my opinion is Modine has been a good business to have, and I think we want to support that. But I understand, my
I
concern
don't
was
share your
that
enthusiasm in taking a retail space and turning it into a warehouse.
we haven't had anybody retail in there for as long as I've lived here. So
In fact, it was in the newspaper today. It was, I believe it was 20 years ago, in March that Kmart closed 280 some odd store. Is in the history today of the newspaper. So
yeah,
very
not a
much
whole lot of
about it.
commercial opening up with Amazon.
Yeah, we were very, I will caveat to that. We were very excited when Ollie's came in and when Harbor Freight came in. And we, of course, have always extended that appreciation to the 251 site, the Modine site currently that was used for storage. And so that obviously was tremendous news for Rockbridge County that was no longer going to be utilized as storage, but that has transitioned into production. And so that we're dealing with some logistics here on the transition of that move.
Any other input here, board members? No.
Well, I think it's a good continued use for that property. I really do. I do understand the truck traffic, and just the other, when we still had snow on the ground, I watched a truck driver come in there. I was sitting there having a meeting with someone in the parking lot, and I watched a truck driver come in and drag your trailer over about a 5-foot snow pile. And he had plenty of room not to do that, but there's always going to be issues with trucks, and that.
If we have a retail place in there, they're going to have deliveries.
Yeah.
We're going to have people, but that's just my opinion.
I share that.
Okay.
I would like to make a suggested edit possibly to the number 1 warehouse storage. It currently reads warehouse storage is limited to 40,000 square feet. If we'd like to hone in on that, it could state that warehouse storage is limited to the existing approximately 40,000 square feet, further identified as 80 East Midland Trail. And also share the concerns, cognitive of the concerns of loss of retail space as well. So with that could be a suggested edit.
Did you get that?
I said warehouse storage area is limited to 40,000 square feet, known, identified as 80 East Midland Trail. What else do you want me to add to that?
The existing 40,000.
The existing approximate 40,000 square feet identified as 80 East Midland Trail.
What is 78? Is that?
Let me go back to my map. 78 is going to be on the, that is Ollie's.
That's
so 78 is on the very end, and then 82 is going to be Harbor Freight. And so the vacant address that we're dealing with is 80.
Okay. Say existing what?
The existing 40,000 square feet.
And that's approximately 40,000. Yes.
Okay. You ready?
Yes.
That's your hat.
All right. I make a motion to recommend to the special, recommend a special exemption permit to Modine Manufacturing for warehousing in a portion of the existing Stonewall Square Shopping Center at 80 East Midland Trail in the business, general business B1 zoning district identified as a portion of tax map 75-A-40A be approved with the following conditions: warehouse storage area is limited approximately existing to the 40,000 square feet identified as 80 East Midland Trail. All loading and unloading shall be in the rear of the building.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Deber, thank you for your time, and we'll follow up by the end of the week on the next steps with the supervisors. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I do appreciate your time. Appreciate it.
Okay, agenda item number 7 is Timothy Tolley, 5819 North Lee Highway, Fairfield, Virginia. Proposed rezoning from general business B1 zoning district to the residential mixed R2 zoning district.
Yes, and I'll get everyone up to speed on this one. This is going to be tax map number 39-29-A as an apple. It is located near the intersection, essentially on the intersection of Sterrett Road and Route 11. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this property for you, the entire section here. So Mr. Timothy Tolley, that's in attendance with us this evening, along with David Stahl, the property manager, has made an application for a conditional rezoning. The current property owner is Spirit Wind LLC. The property currently consists of 3.942 acres per tax records and currently located in the general business zone. With that, I'd like to turn on my zoning. The red on this map is the general business zone. So it's located in the general business and surrounded by the general business zone. The application is for a rezoning of a 0.75 acre portion of the existing parcel from general business B1 to residential mix in order to convert the existing building into multifamily dwellings. The property is located at 5819 North Lee Highway, Fairfield, and we've gone over the details of the intersection. With that, I'd like to have Mr. Collier or Mr. Stahl come up, review additional details or answering questions that the board may have prior to opening up the public hearing, I should say.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Timothy Colley.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to the presentation?
Nothing. I think he's covered it. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer.
So where are these did you say 0.75 acres that we need to?
It is a plat in your property. I can draw approximate outline. There's a proposed rezoning plat and a proposed subdivision plat, if you will.
Okay.
But as far as the approximate location, and this is going to, well, we'll see how approximate it is.
It's on the back of another page, sorry.
Yeah. So it includes the parking area and approximately this much land, and I'm going to see how good we are. This represents 0.69 acres, so it's essentially a little bit bigger than this one here.
Okay.
But there of course is a plat in your property showing the exact meets and bounds of the proposed rezone.
I see it. Sorry, I didn't go far enough in my packet. Got it.
I can delete that actually.
Do you all have any questions for Mr. Tolley while he's up here?
I will add that this has been advertised as a conditional rezoning, and we have a sign in your package. Of course, you have the notice of public hearing that went to the joiners. You have a map of the property. You have a description from Mr. David Stahl, a plat of the existing parcel, a proposed parcel, and then a proffer statement by Mr. Tolley to the Board of Supervisors that states the development of the property, proposed revised tax map number 39-29-A.75 acres, for which the application being made shall be for 6 multifamily units within the existing building on the property. And number 2, the multifamily units shall be served by public water and public sewer within 1 year of date of approval of the rezoning application. And so those are both signed proffers. I will also just add briefly that I've talked to Mr. It's sort of a chicken or egg thing because it's required to be hooked. Currently, it's on a well and drain field, or at least a drain field. I'm not sure about the well part. It might be on a well and drain field. And so in order for it to have this unique 0.75 acres, it's required to be hooked up to public water and public sewer. With that being said, we were dealing with a chicken or egg type situation of, that the current landowner is not proposing to hook it up to public water and public sewer. Mr. Tolley is. And so we've had the discussion of we, the Office of Community Development, are going to require a bond, letter of credit, and or cash escrow of the total amount to do that work. And that would include a quote from the PSA, a detailed quote from the Public Service Authority, and a detailed quote from an excavator, including materials. That will be the combination of the letter of credit that's.
We don't need to have that in a conditional rezoning.
No, ma'am, because
motion.
it's taken care of. In my opinion, it's taken care of in condition number 2. It requires it within 1 year.
Okay. And this is alluded to here, but we don't have to have those proffers also listed out in the motion.
No, ma'am. I believe the prepared motion has acceptance of the prepared acceptance of the proffers. So that would be correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just want to make sure we cover all our bases. Okay. I think unless you have something to add, we'll ask questions if we come up with any, but looks pretty clear.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. So do we have anybody here to speak?
No one signed up, but we'll recognize anyone at this time.
Okay.
Not seeing any. Go to online. If you are an attendee and would like to speak, please raise your hand now. Not seeing any. I'll give y'all a second on that. I do have one written comment. It is addressed to the members of the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors. It is from Don Wetzel. It says, I am the current owner of the property of 5819 North Lee Highway in Fairfield. I purchased the property it says 1198, but I assume 1998. And we were blessed to fulfill part of our vision on the property and successfully used it for many years for my health and wellness business. My wife and business partner passed away in March of 16. And by the end of the year, I chose to close the Fairfield office and move all my business to the Stanton office. I am writing today to express my support on the rezoning request of this property. From what I have seen, Mr. Tolley, he has a nice vision for the property and one that I believe will serve Rockbridge County well. Certainly, it would be an asset to Rockbridge County to have someone with a vision to occupy it and support the county. It's a beautiful building and is a landmark in Rockbridge County. Multi-residential uses of the building should support many of the local businesses in the Fairfield location, should not interfere with either residential or many small business neighbors. Sincerely, Don Wetzel. That is all the written comments I have. We do not have anyone with a raised hand. I'll turn the floor back over to the chair.
Okay, so we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions, concerns, comments up here? It's pretty clear. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the conditional rezoning of the 3.942 acres located at 5819 North Lee Highway, Fairfield, Virginia, in the South River Magisterial District and identified as tax map number 39-29-A from the business B1 zoning district to the residential mixed R2 zoning district with acceptance of proper conditions be approved.
I second. Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Agenda item number 9, Nicholas and Bethany. I know I messed this up last time. Ioka. I should get that. 1492 Rafine Road, Rafine, Virginia. Application for a special exception permit in order to develop and operate a commercial kennel in the agricultural and general uses A2 zoning district. You have a presentation?
I have a very brief overview of the property. Nicholas and Bethany Ioka, and I always butcher that, so I appreciate that. I didn't have the opportunity to do that quite so bad. 1372 Rafine Road. And if you bear with me, I'm going to share my screen. It's located on the south side of Rafine Road. Have made the application to amend a condition associated with a previously approved special exception permit. The property is located in the agricultural and general use district per section 603.05-5 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations. A commercial kennel is a use by special exception in the A2 zoning district. The existing special exception permit and associated conditions were approved by the Board of Supervisors on January 28, 2019 with the following conditions. Number 1, breeding of golden retrievers only. Number 2, limited to 10 females and 2 male golden retrievers for breeding. Number 3, puppies will be kept inside the dwelling until a permanent enclosed structure can be constructed. And number 4, boarding and grooming operations shall be prohibited. Per the enclosed written description of plans, the proposed amendment is to remove the limit of number of dogs associated with the dog breeding business. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. and Mrs. Ioka, and with any additional details and go from there. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so everyone can hear and see. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, so that is part of, for one thing, we want to say thank you for the past 3 years when we came before you before. and you granted us that special use permit or the permit to have the kennel. We had, you trusted us at that time. We came and we kind of gave you a little overview of what we had done in Vermont before we moved down here, and gave you a few facts about what we were doing. And now down here, we've been able to do what we had planned on doing with the dogs and raising golden retrievers, but also growing that. Right now, we're at the point where we would like to be able to remove that stipulation of having just the 10 females and the 2 males. I don't know if you were able to look over our letter that we had submitted on this property, but we have a lot of interest. We have people that buy from Maine to Florida. They drive to our property. All of our dogs are, as it was stated, that we had, our puppies are all born in our house. Our basement is very nice and adequate for dogs to be born in. People come into our home when they come and pick up their puppies. Everything goes these days with raising dogs, the public will, based on their opinion, if you are a good breeder or not. And if you look at our ratings, we are one of the top breeders in Virginia, and not only in Virginia, but also on the entire East Coast. So there's no negativity from the people that we have sold to that have left ratings or that kind of thing. So we are asking to have the stipulation of the amount removed because it is very difficult for us to keep up with the demand and also for our puppies with those limitations in place. Part of the reason is that we cannot have dogs have to be certified when they are 2 years old. So at that point, if they do not pass certification, we can't breed them, and you have to start all over again. And so to be able to have the exception taken away for the number would help us to be able to have more dogs that we have available that would hopefully be certified so that we can actually raise dogs with them. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to.
I have one question right off the top. Did the permanent enclosed structure get built?
So the permanent enclosed structure, I don't believe it needed to be built. It just
says puppies would be kept inside until a permanent enclosed structure
that's
can
correct.
be completed.
So we don't have any plans of, we would never put our puppies outside, outside of a permanently enclosed building. So like we have, I've said, we have them in our basement. And even if there was additional buildings built, we would keep the puppies inside anyways, because our facility is really
I just
good.
thought the plan was to have an enclosed structure that was not in the home. So that's why I asked that. I remember you guys coming before. I'm one of the few that was on the board when you guys.
Yes, absolutely. And it makes it very handy for my wife. She gets up every 2 hours, 24 hours a day when we have puppies, and she goes down physically and checks out the puppies. So to have them in our basement makes it very easy for her instead of having to go outside.
Myself, litters of labs.
Yes.
I know. You're sleeping in the whelping bed with them. So.
Yes. Yep.
Any questions for him while he's up here in front of us?
The limitation that was placed on it, did the planning commission come up with that, or was that a number that you came
No,
up
they
with
did
at
not.
the time?
So the planning commission did when Quickenberger was in.
Yeah,
He
we did ask
recommended-
for
a
a
certain
number.
number.
You know, we didn't want there to be 100 dogs. I mean, I want there to be some kind, there are still neighbors and, I understand they're far away, but, we didn't want it to become a puppy mill situation where you've got 100 dogs, on the site. So I know we asked for that. That was a proper, you guys, I think, came up with that number.
Yes, actually, we asked for 15, and Quickenberger actually went back and said, no, we're going to try for 10.
Right.
So we had actually asked for 15 at that time. We're hoping for quite a few more than that now, just because of the demand for our dogs. And like I had said, in this day and age, you cannot have a puppy mill, I don't believe, unless you are selling wholesale. And that would be in a way that the public would not be coming to your property to see your business, because there's no way to hide that. And the moment a breeder like ourselves would start do something that would be in perception of the public as something like a puppy mill, our ratings would tank and everything else about our business would go away.
Right.
So
So how many dogs are, I mean, you said quite a few more than 15
Yes.
now. So
Yes.
what?
So we just wanted to have that limitation taken away because we never planned to move from this property. I understand though from the details that this is something that is placed on the property regardless. So it's not something that's not contingent. I wish there was a way to make it contingent on us owning the property or our family owning the property. But after talking to Chris, it doesn't seem
Runs
like that
with
is
the land.
a way to be, it goes with the
Right.
land regardless. So
Right.
I understand your number. Now, what we see as a max number of what we would ever need on that property for our golden retrievers would be 40 dogs. That is the max. And what I mean by that is that it would be max breeding dogs. So that would not be contingent on how many males versus how many females like we have now, but it would just be max breeding dogs would be.
Then it
on
would be
property.
that plus whatever puppies you have on the property.
Yes, that's correct. But they wouldn't be breeding dogs, obviously. They'd be sellable
Mhm.
and for sale. Yes. Yeah. But that would be the max that we would ever
That
do.
totally it kind of floors me I can't imagine having 40 dogs on a property, but I have enough with the 3 I have. Okay, any other questions for him before we open up the public hearing?
Will the puppies still be kept inside with 40, 40?
Oh,
breeder-
absolutely. Yes.
So you could potentially
Absolutely.
have lots.
So are the 40 dogs also inside or are they out?
40 dogs,
in-
well, when they are whelping in as mothers, they
Right.
are inside. And so, but then the dogs are kept outside in kennels in our backyard, right behind our place, so that they can be well taken care of and all. And yeah, so they're not all
outside, yeah.
inside. Mostly they are outside unless they are whelping. All the males stay outside.
How many whelp at one time?
We don't usually have any more than 5 at a time.
Okay, so that still could be 35 dogs out in the,
Yes,
Kennels.
it could be. Yes, you're right.
okay, anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna open this up to the public hearing. Do we have
No
any?
one is signed up to speak. I don't recognize anyone. working.
So now we're gonna take comments via computer and phone.
We do have a hand raised. With that, I will, it is Shannon Spencer. And Ms. Spencer, you have the floor. You are muted and you're unmuted.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. One is how many litters does each dog have? And I guess the females is what I'm really talking about. I'm just wondering about their health. And then also, maybe this is 2 related questions. How close to I can't quite tell from the map how close you are to other properties, but where I live in Walker's Creek District, there's a kennel that's, I don't think it's that far away, but it's not, I've never seen it from anywhere nearby, but I hear those dogs all the time and they're really, really loud sometimes. And so I'd be concerned for your neighbors. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mrs. Spencer, thank you for your question. To answer the first question about the litters of puppies, it all depends on the dog. So there are 1 litter a year, some are 2, and it just depends. It's not always the same dog that has 2. It's not always the same dog that has 1. But that answers the question for that. And it all really relates to the health of the dog itself. And so the barking issue, the property that you had mentioned, we own, I know it looks like we own a small piece of property, and we do. This is a small 1.5 acre lot. However, we also own a 7 acre, almost 8 acre lot that adjoins to 2 sides of this property. And then we own another 64 acre lot that adjoins to the side of our lawn too. So it is on this 1.5 acres, but we own pretty close to 70, 75 acres that is all contingent and attached to the side lawn of this property. So we have a lot of space that the dogs run on and are able to exercise on. Our neighbors, we do have the Ridgemore development right behind our property. We have one lot that is touching our property from Ridgemore with the neighbor there. And to be honest with you, our dogs are all very quiet. And I understand the kennel noise. We've been to kennels that are very, very noisy. Our dogs are not noisy. We've never received one complaint from the Ridgemore, our Ridgemore neighbors. They're all within easy earshot of our kennel. We actually honestly hear as much barking from the Ridgemore development as comes from our dogs. And there's far fewer dogs, we believe, in the Ridgemore development probably than what we have or what we propose to have. So to answer your question, it is our concern as well. We like our own peace and quiet and sanity too. We don't like the dogs barking, but our dogs really don't bark. They're all bred to be really calm and good family dogs. I remember previously when Krickenberger came out, he mentioned specifically that how quiet our dogs were. So it's something that you're gonna, I guess, stop and roll down your window and see if you can hear them barking or not. And I'm sure you'll be satisfied that it's quite quiet. So.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So we will close the public comment period and bring it back to the board. Questions?
And I will share my screen one more time to review some of the details. So this is unique to this property. That's 1.47 acres. The other properties in the area that are owned by the family are, I believe, this property and then this property as well. As far as the closest neighbor goes, I'm thinking that's going to be in Ridgemore subdivision. And as far as the, from house to house, let's say, is approximately 480 feet.
Okay, thank you.
I do apologize for maybe asking this question. How long have you been at this location, owned this property? So that was your initial time when you came. Okay.
Mhm.
And I understand you own the connecting properties there. You have any intentions of ever getting rid of any of those properties? Okay.
And this would be another, just to caveat to my original statement, this is unique to, this permit is unique to the 1.47 acres. So it would not allow the other properties to be utilized for the breeding purposes.
Mhm. Okay.
40 dogs, a lot of dogs.
I agree. I think there needs to be a number, because you can't just say, we're not going to put a number on it at all.
I think one of the reasons probably that the number got put on, start with Tim, to answer your question, there was kind of a illegal dog breeding. Whatever.
Business.
To say right up next to Ray Finger. And it caused a lot of grief for a lot of people in the Ray Finger area. And I think that's one reason that probably we ended up with a 10 dog limit on this thing to start with, because there was a whole lot of flack over that one. And trying to get it actually out of the house that they were.
I think it was 10 females and 2 males.
Yeah,
So if you
10.
figure that was 10, I was thinking about how many litters that is a year. It was at least 10. It's probably more like 15 because some were doing 2.
Well, just like you're back now wanting more dogs and wanting to grow your business, which is a good thing. And who's to say we go in and we go, well, here's, we'll give you, the ability to have 10 or 20, 10 more, or like 20, 22, 24 dogs, and go from there and see where we're at. And, if they want to come back 3 years down the road and go, hey, we need some more, it's just a matter of coming before us. And it's like, okay, how many neighbors are complaining, what's going on? That's where we're at to see, because we don't want to create a problem for your neighbors at Ridgemore and somebody across the road or wherever it may be. I don't.
Yes, sir. I totally agree with you. It's just that up until this point, we have made no choice so it's like, and now, for the-
I certainly understand.
You don't have
it.
them until you do. So we're at 10 dogs and we're not having any complaints. But when you go to 30 dogs,
So-
now you've opened the box and you can't put it back in. Whereas, once we approve it,
and
that's it.
And this files a property. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Nicest people in the world, got a good operation going on, no problems, neighbors are happy, everybody's good. 5 years down the road, you decide to sell it, stays with the property, the next people come in, and we got 40 hunting dogs getting bred there, blue ticks, and they bark all the time. So
Say, was that one of the proffers? Was the breed of the dog?
It is, yes. And Nicholas, yes, if you could come up and speak, it's just no, that's all right. It's just when the viewers, you can't hear anything if you don't come up. So it is a condition on the property. Number one condition is it's limited to golden retrievers only.
So what are the other conditions that are on the property? There was the puppies that were inside.
The breeding of golden retrievers only limited to 10 females, 2 males for breeding. Puppies will be kept inside dwelling unit until permanent enclosed structure can be constructed, and boarding and grooming operations shall be prohibited.
Yes.
Are the 4 current on the books.
Yeah. So that would all stay. We're all good with that. We don't plan to breed any other type of dog on that property. We're golden retriever people, from my wife and I. And so the thing with having the more dogs, it would still be just for the golden retrievers. So, but I understand. I mean, if somebody was able to come in with beagles, that was the issue with Ray Fiend, where it was so noisy.
well, you add more dogs, and that's on my own concern. Do we want to put a cap on it for now? And or do you want to?
I do. I'm not comfortable with just saying,
What's the number?
So,
I think we need a number.
so what would be your comfortable number? I know what you've said, but if we're gonna make a decision for you, what would you like that decision to be?
Well,
Let's see if we can.
we know we don't feel like we'd ever have to come before you again with 40. That's what we don't believe. Now, if you would like us to have, come before you again in another 3 years and kind of make a note of this, that, and see if there is complaining, and then maybe with the idea of saying, hey, we will consider going to your number of 40, then we would ask at this time that you would say 30.
I'm good with that. I'm thinking he's doing the outright effort to do everything that we've asked him to do. And he's come back in 3 years with positive feedback. He's willing to do it again for future.
I'm not sure about positive. I mean, we haven't heard from the neighbors. They haven't complained, but it's been 10 dogs. You're multiplying that by 3. That's a pretty big jump.
Yeah.
From
That's
10 to
12
30.
12 dollars.
Right. That's right.
Double it.
But at that time, we're listing 10 and 2, and now we're just gonna put a single number, right? That's what
would
you're
ask
preferring.
that, yes. Yes.
Double it.
So I will add, we had a conversation right before the meeting that the boarding, and Ms. Huffman and I had a conversation prior to this meeting, obviously, as far as the boarding operation, we would not consider, one thing Nicholas and I spoke with when the application was made was the interpretation that they could not have a stud dog on the property because someone else's stud dog, I should say.
One they own is one thing, but
Yes.
you couldn't bring somebody else.
Right, exactly.
But that would not be considered the boarding part of it. Boarding would be someone paying you to board their dog and care for their dog.
You are paying them. I mean, if it's a stud dog and you're taking your stud dog, you're either going to get paid with a puppy or you're going to get paid with money. If you bring that stud dog
We would not
in,
consider
and they're
that
there for
part
10
of a-
days or 7 days. I mean, I've done that
But
where I've
that-
taken my female. They're definitely boarding them. They're feeding them. They're taking care of them. I mean, to me, that's boarding for sure.
I'm not going to
Yeah,
consider.
but they're
boarding-
not paying them. It's
For
more
stud
the
feed.
other way around.
I'm not
It
gonna-
is just
No, they
boarding.
are.
It's just boarding, not stud service.
Well, we are
right?
not,
Or-
we are not giving out stud service. So say we would not have a female dog from another breeder come, and we would not, that would be boarding. But in my interpretation, in my mind, the reason why I think of this is that if I bring in a stud dog from, say, Alabama, and he stays with us for a week, I would feel as if that is boarding a stud dog for our business and would not be allowed underneath the what the wording is.
Is somebody paying you to keep that dog there?
No, we'd be paying them.
Right, exactly. That's the exact reverse of
Okay.
what a boarding situation would
Okay.
be.
To me, it's a max number of dogs. So as long as you got, if it's a
The
24
number's
limit,
30 or 24.
30, 24, whatever it is, as long as that dog's considered
Yes.
in that number, then that's where I'm at.
Right.
Sure.
You don't want to have 3
Yeah.
stud dogs plus 40 dogs or
On a
whatever.
stud dog.
Yeah, sure,
But as
I
far as
understand.
Boarding, I'm with Vic, boarding's boarding. If you don't,
I certainly don't. I certainly want to encourage your business and I want to help you.
Thank you.
So we just got to come up with a number that we
The
can.
number that we
I'll
offer.
pick a
Yeah.
number.
Yeah.
Right. And y'all don't have any concerns about the number of puppies and all that kind of stuff, that's not a,
That's
That's irrelevant.
You can't dictate that because
Well,
it may have, they may have.
Have
Certainly
one, they may
not
have
irrelevant,
15.
but it's
Right.
fine.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
But also we need, we need to clarify the number of total dogs, but also we have to consider what we just said as far as the stud dogs there as well. You know,
We
with
said
not,
including stud dogs. We want, the number should never be above X, whatever that number is, including any stud dogs that come to visit. That's kind of what we said.
I think we
I
can,
think
I
that's
think we can work
I
that
think
in.
that's what we've said. Yes.
I would. Okay. So we are back to the board here. So you want to make a motion or you got some discussions?
Let's pick a number.
What's the number you like? I'm, you know,
I can't do 40 right now.
and I really don't want to do 40 either. It's one thing that Sam always has read into me and I've took it, you know, he said, don't give the farm away, you know, just wait a while, come back. And this is a relatively painless process. So I know that you'll have to come back and see us again, or somebody, probably won't be me, but anyway.
Mhm. If it's in 3 years, you're going to be here.
We just need to live with the number 30. Are we living with 30? Or are we living with double?
She was comfortable with 30. If you're comfortable with 30. you know.
I'm
comfortable with 30.
Okay.
Robert, you comfortable with 30?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Hey, majority rules here. Go for it.
So I know we got 2 things here before us. If you want a motion, which one of these are we working on
Would be the
first?
first one limited to, and we're not going to switch it up between female and male. It's total dogs
So we're
on
just
the
gonna-
property,
Okay.
limited to 30 golden retrievers for breeding, period. Are you reading it?
I certainly can.
There
And
you
then,
go.
and we are at this one, right? I make a motion to recommend the board of supervisors that the amendment of special exception permit conditions to. Well, that's the one we want, right? Remove the limitation of the number associated with dog breeding business. 1372 Rafine Road be approved with the following substitute condition. And how are we going to exactly word that?
I think limited to 30 golden retrievers for breeding purposes.
Total number, 30. Yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Second. Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion passes. Thank you. Appreciate it. Last one. Wait, number 10. Robert N. Huff, 40 Wild, no?
I'm sorry, we have one more with the
Yeah.
Ioka family.
Oh, what did I miss? Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry. Number 9, Nicholas and Bethany Ioka, 1492 Rafine Road, Rafine, Virginia. Application for a special exception permit in order to develop and operate a commercial kennel in the agricultural and general uses A2 zoning district.
All right, so just to give you all a very brief review. This was the 1372 property that we just recommended amending the conditions to the supervisors. Since that time, the family has purchased 1492, which I will highlight that here, and has made an application in order to develop a commercial kennel per section 16. I won't bore y'all with the details of the definition. The property, again, 1492, is located on the agricultural general use district per section 603.05-5 land development regulations. Commercial use is a use by special exception. We've reviewed the property details. The property is identified as 27-A-23B and consists of 1.88 acres per tax records. Per the application, they would like to start a breeding business and a boarding business at this location. So what I've given in front of you, and I won't read these, but what I've given you in your package is the current condition associated, the current condition as it stood 15 minutes ago of the current operation with the 4, and then also a additional for reference below condition used for previously approved boarding operation. And the business shall be limited to grooming, boarding of dogs and cats. No, man, I messed this up. I'll have to go back and get the actual numbers of, I apologize, but I put a grooming operation in there, not a business operation. So I can, while we have this discussion in public hearing, I can give you some draft conditions that could be considered as far as the boarding part of the operation. With that, I'll turn the floor over to Nicholas again.
Hello again.
Hello. Nice to be back.
Uh-huh.
So yes, with 1492, we purchased that property last year, and with the our business growing with the golden retrievers, I have a brother over in Kentucky that is interested. We've actually offered him a job if this would come to pass, that he could come with his family and live at this house and start another business. He's interested. He's a shepherd. He loves sheep. All right. So that's partly what we'd also use part of our other property for, to graze his sheep and stuff. And I'd like to develop that more into agricultural use and stuff. We have cattle, that kind of thing as well. But he's really interested in like the sheep dogs, the type that, you know, any herding type of dog. He likes the guard dogs, all that kind of stuff. So that would go with the sheep. And we need a kennel permit on this property to that, and we would like it to not be limited to our golden retrievers because of his interest in raising that herding type of dog that goes along with his sheep thing. So also down the road, I mean, we did buy this property for our children. They show interest that they would like to raise, you know, labs. Is one breed that they are interested in raising themselves. They've been around dogs obviously all their lives, and they have their preferences, and they think it'd be fun to do what mom and dad has done. And so we bought that property, and we decided, look, before we do anything, we'll see if you grant us the permission to have what is allowed by the law, you know, that we could have and grow a business into an actual kennel if we so desire to have the permit there, that we could build a kennel that we really could board dogs, other people's dogs, or so that's why we asked for that. It's not that we necessarily will use that to that full extent, but that is why we wrote what we did.
Okay. All right. Anything else? You have questions before he goes back, or? This one got by me, so I apologize. I need to. I was just thinking about that one, so didn't really get into that. So I think no questions at this time, but we may have some questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So are we ready to open this up to the public hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So at this time, we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone physically here to speak?
There's no one signed up to speak.
And is there anybody online by computer and phone?
Yes, we have Ms. Spencer with a hand raised. If you could unmute. Yes, ma'am, you've unmuted. Will you have the floor?
Thank you. So I guess I'm going to maybe repeat my concern. So I live on a property that has a lot of acres between us and anybody else, and there is this kennel, and it is loud, and it means that you know, if we're outside enjoying an afternoon doing whatever outside, we're listening to a whole bunch of other dogs barking far, far away. And they're just really loud. So I would be very, very concerned for that subdivision that's pretty close to your property. Because it can be a real nuisance. And when it's one thing if you're talking about golden retrievers, and it's quite another if you're talking about dogs that you can't control what kind of dogs they are that you're breeding. So that would be my major concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer.
Thank you for your concern, Mrs. Spencer. I too understand what you're saying with the noise factor. The property that is completely around this property is owned by one landholder, and we are friends with her. We do work side by side with her. We do purchase cattle from her. She has no problem with us having the kennel there. Or that is our previous kennel. I've not spoken to her actually about this kennel in itself with this permit, but I know that she didn't have any concern about the other one, and she didn't address any concerns concerning this when she was given the letter of our intent. So I understand, yes, it is a possibility for sure that there could be more barking because it would not be limited to our golden retrievers. I could not promise that there would not be additional barking coming from this kennel proposed location. But at the same time, it is something that we could deal with as far as like enclosures and that kind of thing. And my wife and I don't really enjoy obnoxious barking ourselves. So it'd be something that we would very strongly consider and try to mitigate that as best as we can.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment?
I don't believe so. No, ma'am.
Okay, with no further comment, the public hearing is closed and we'll bring it back to the board.
I just got a question for you, Chris, and you may not know this number off the top of your head. How many kennels operate in Rockbridge County? Do you know?
I don't know that. I mean, it's not uncommon for us to have a grooming operation. I can review the definition of a kennel. I have that readily available, but I'm uncertain. It's not uncommon for us to get grooming operations. We've had some boarding operations as well, and of course, commercial breeding operations.
Do you mind just running over that definition?
Absolutely, yes. So the definition is this is per section 302.116 of the Rockbridge County Land Development Regulation. A kennel is defined as any location where raising, grooming, caring for, or boarding of dogs, cats, or other small animals for commercial purposes is carried on.
And they would be boarding and grooming and raising.
The only one
puppies at
that's
this
not on
location?
that we haven't talked about is grooming, but their proposal does include boarding and breeding. Is that correct? Yes.
And this property was it 1.88, something like that
The
acres?
property consists of, oops, I changed it over here.
Start bringing in boarding.
People and
That's a totally different operation. Yeah, absolutely no control over what kind of work it's done. It's outside, yes, no control.
Computer's going slow, but the property consists of 1.88 acres.
Yeah, which doesn't seem very large for that. I mean, you're surrounded, they said, by one other property owner.
Did you get any calls from anyone?
We got a significant amount of phone calls on both applications, if you will. And generally speaking, it was just, there was no calls from direct land adjoiners, if I recall. It's just general public traveling. And we did get, I'd say, a dozen phone calls. That's a guess.
just concerned about dog barking and.
No, was completely wondering what the applications were for. It's, we post the property with a zoning action pending sign.
Okay.
So they,
And when you told them what it was, or when they were told what it was there any
no, ma'am.
feedback?
No, there was not much feedback. Thank you,
Mhm.
To me, this one has more potential of being problematic than the 30 dogs they've got down there. Because the boarding side of things and the different breeds.
Breeds, dogs unfamiliar with the other dogs, they're gonna communicate, people coming and going,
To me, if you're gonna start doing something here, it's gotta be something that's enclosed. Totally.
Mhm.
You know?
Even that's loud.
And then, yeah, but it's inside.
Yeah.
I won't be across the road here on the land. And there are adjoining landowners. There is a house up the road. Remember, right, it's a farmhouse, pretty significant size, older farmhouse, and I'm sure that noise carries that direction where the wind blows. So,
Yeah, I was at a food line and I could hear dog, I mean, it was way far away from where it was over in the distance.
I mean, that's the problem I have with that.
I think Ms. Spencer brought up a good point about that, they can be pretty far away, but the way the wind is and the way these things are, I have some big concerns about it.
So are we wanting to take out the golden retriever part of it altogether, and it just going to be any
Basically,
various
all
dog?
those things would be out, and because they would be doing boarding and breeding operations, nothing's prohibited there.
I'm not familiar with this piece of property 100%. I've been by it a ton of times, but as far as going back to, oh yeah, I know how it lays. I wouldn't be too, I wouldn't be opposed to kicking this down at the next meeting and looking at it so we can look at the
Go out and
property.
look at the property.
I would like to look at the property.
Be an idea.
Okay.
and we could have a motion on that, but for us to work on it, if we can get a general, if I can get a general idea of the conditions y'all are looking for. Obviously, I've written down enclosed structure, location of the enclosed, identifying the location of the enclosed structure. I'm hearing number of dogs. I'm hearing type of dogs. I mean, as far as for breeding purposes.
Yes.
Anything else that y'all want us to work on?
You're looking to say something, Tim, I can tell.
Well, I got to apologize that I did not make a site visit, and I'm better than that, but I have just been so busy, and I would like the time to go out there.
Is that okay with you guys if we kick this down and the road a little bit? Okay, so we need, go ahead. Sure.
We because I didn't explain 100%. We wanted to have that as the what ifs, but we don't mind coming back in a few years, like what we have, and then add that onto it.
Add
The actual kennel to be able to board, because in the what we had thought before about our golden retriever business, that we could not board or bring a stud dog in there. So we wanted to have that clause over on the other property so we could bring a stud dog in. Now, are we planning to actually own and operate somewhere where somebody brings their pit bull to our place and we keep it for amount of weeks? Well, no, that is actually not what we are.
Your number one goal is to have another breeding operation
Right.
with a different breed of
A
dog.
different breed of dogs, and it's basically for my brother to help us out with our business that we have, and be able to have golden retrievers over there as well, that he can have underneath his watchful care all the time, but also for them to be able to expand into the type of breeds that they enjoy. I am not a herding dog person. That's not me, but my brother is, and he's very good with them. So that's something that I want available for him, because I know that he would do very well with that, with the sheep, and he wants to have that kind of like as a business to train them. So if it really came down to what we plan on doing is the herding dogs, golden retrievers, and labs there. And if you would like to come out and see the site still, I mean, we'd be glad to have you come
Yeah, I
out.
think taking
Please
the
do.
boarding thing off makes me feel a lot more comfortable, but I would like to see the site.
Yes.
I'd like to see where it is in relation to other
Yes.
people and property. So
But
if we can do
it-
that.
the only reason, I don't know if there's a way to word it to be able to actually board a dog there in the event that we need to, not to have maybe like the full scale operation, but to be able to say, hey, you can board 2 dogs. And that would give us just a little leeway. Okay, so we can keep a dog here if we need to, you know, but it's not like 30 dogs where we're boarding and then it's just a full out barking contest.
Gotcha. Okay. So we need a motion to continue this. We're not going to keep that public hearing open, or do we want to keep the public hearing open?
Have you already closed it?
I did. Yeah. It's done. Well, it sounds like we're changing. It sounds a little different though. So I wondered if it would open back up if it's a different.
No, ma'am, but the
Okay.
advertising would stand.
Okay. That's fine.
It's not unique to boarding or I say that, but let me see. Well, no, it'd be less than. So this particular one, it states this is, sorry, B, this is B, I believe.
So as long as you're doing less than what you advertised, you don't have to re-advertise. We don't have to reopen the public hearing. We can just come out and do
You
our
do
site
have to
visit.
advertise when you set the public hearing over. You do not when you just set it over for consideration.
Right. Okay.
So we've opened, closed the public hearing. And so we are not continuing the public hearing, but the advertisement was made for a special exception in order to develop and operate a commercial kennel, and just left it at that. So it was not specified what parts of caring for
Okay.
breeding, grooming, that type of thing. So
Okay.
I'm confident that the ad will stand.
So we're just comfortable making a motion that we're going to continue this to the next meeting.
Correct.
Yes.
To the
So
April
moved.
13th. Okay. A motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. The motion passes. Lana has been so patiently waiting over there.
Yes.
So we are at number 10, Robert N. Huff, 40 Wiley Lane, Goshen, Virginia, application for a variation of the standards associated with the time frame requirement associated with family subdivision.
Yes, ma'am, and I will be as brief as possible. This is located on the south side of Bratton's Run Road, off of Texas Lane. Texas Lane is not the intersection. Bear with me here. This is identified as 20-2-16B, owned by Robert N. Huff. And while this is pulling up, zoom out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so the Huff property is identified in the magenta there. Robert N. Huff has made an application for a variation of the standards associated with the time frame requirement of a family member can voluntarily transfer a parcel of land associated with a family subdivision. The property, 40 Wiley Lane, Goshen, Virginia, is located on the southeastern side of the intersection of Texas Lane, Private Lane, Private Road, and Wiley Lane, Private Road, identified as tax map number 20-2-16B, located in agricultural zoning districts. A parcel and per section 302.07 207 land development regulations, a parcel that is approved as a family subdivision may not be voluntary transferred to anyone then immediate family member for a period of 5 years after the approval of the subdivision plat. Per section 302.07, the special exception can be made to this requirement considered per section 913. The family subdivision was approved. This particular family subdivision was approved on November 3rd, 2017. Therefore, without a waiver, the time frame requirement for the property cannot be voluntarily transferred to a non-family member till November 3rd, 2022. So with that being said, a little bit, the parent parcel was this entire parcel here. If I recall correctly, Mr. Huff's sister lived in this house, built this house, lived in this house, and owned this entire acreage. Mr. Huff and his wife were planning to retire here. They did a family subdivision. They acquired a 13.688 acre parcel per the family subdivision. there was a death in the family. Mr. Huff's wife passed away. And since that time, his sister has sold this property. The restriction of the 5-year time period is only on one of the two properties. It doesn't go with both of them. So she has since moved away, and due to the death in the family and his sister no longer living in the area, Mr. Huff does not have plans to retire here and would like it has requested a waiver of the time frame associated with family subdivisions. With that, I'll turn the floor over to Miss Lana Nicely, that's representing. Appreciate her patience. I think I told her, well, maybe I did tell you about 9:30, so it's not too terribly bad.
No, actually, when we were talking about it, you said, I would hope it would not be 9:30.
Fair enough.
How about 8:15?
I'll reiterate that. I would hope it. No, just kidding.
Us too.
Yeah, we're totally good. So Chris has basically presented the situation here that we're involved with. I am Mr. Huff's real estate agent. I have been working with him off and on for about 2 years now. He really is not trying to circumvent the privilege of the family subdivision. He had all intents of living there during his retirement. And during these 2 years that I've been working with him, he has put the property on the market, taken it back off, thinking that he would be able to be there. But it just has too many bad memories for him, given the manner of death for his wife. And then also his sister no longer living there. So he has no real family contact to be there. And then COVID hit, which has made financially very, very hard for him to continue to maintain the property here and be in New Jersey with his work situation being so greatly impacted by the COVID situation. We do have an offer, well, we have a contract on the property, someone who is seeking to purchase it. That contract is subject to receiving a waiver of that 5-year exemption. It will go away of its own self come I guess November, is that what we said? But these folks really don't want to wait that long. They've already been under contract since October, waiting for this all to happen. Partially, the reason it didn't is because Mr. Huff was just having difficulty even getting the money together to file the application fee. So we are here just asking that exemption be waived early, if at all possible.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. We don't do a public hearing on this.
So this is somewhat unusual, but in the waiver language in the ordinance, per the section I read earlier, it states that it requires the public hearing process. I'm
Okay.
sorry, it states that it's a special exception process that of course requires a public hearing. So this is a bona fide
Okay.
public.
Okay, so at this time, we're going to open the public hearing. And I don't see anybody here to speak unless Mr. Orson plans to speak up. So we will take comments by computer or phone.
That's all right. I got a picture of him.
We do not have any hands raised at this time. And there's no one physically here that wishes to speak. I'll turn it back over.
Okay, so we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Do you have any comments, questions? And this, we're talking about a few months difference, and we're
Yeah.
talking about a man who
His hardship,
has got a hardship, and I feel like
6 months, it would be done.
Be done,
It's not
exactly.
like it was 6 months in, it's 4.5 years in.
right, right.
And given those circumstances, I'm not sure that I couldn't be sympathetic at 6 months.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Make a motion.
Yes.
Okay. Make a motion to recommend the Board of Supervisors that the special exemption permit waiver for Robert N. Huff for the variation of the standards associated with the time frame requirements that a family member can voluntarily transfer a parcel of land created as a family subdivision identified as tax map number 20-2-16B located in the Walker's Creek Magisterial District be approved.
We have a second? Second, Robert, all in favor?
Aye.
And it's approved. Thank you for your patience this evening. Feel free to come back anytime
Anytime.
you would like. So we are on. I forgot we got one more even.
Let me take that one too, so you can.
Sorry, I just lost my cheat sheet as I was packing it up. Here we go. So we are on agenda item number 11, which is White's Travel Center, 2440 Rafine Road, Rafine, Virginia. Waiver per section 1303.15 to the height requirement for mounting heights for parking lot lighting.
Yes.
So this is not a public hearing. You guys are going to give us a review. And
Yes,
then we
ma'am.
have to approve the waiver or not.
Um,
If he goes to change it.
There it is here. I'm gonna share my screen, get everyone oriented.
I saw it.
All right, Mr. Russell Orson is here with Perkins and Orson, has submitted a request for a waiver of pole heights for lights with White's Travel Center. The property is located at 2440, or in this case, it's next to 2440 Rafine Road. Per section 1303.15, modification waivers and variations in the lighting ordinance, a modification waiver or variation in the terms and conditions set forth in regulations may be granted by the Planning Commission, provided that prior to considering the request to modify, waive, or vary a regulation contained in this article, the owner shall provide a minimum of 10 days written notice to the owner's agent, or occupant of each abutting lot or parcel, and each parcel immediately across the street from the road, a lot which is subject parcel. The written notice shall identify the nature of the request and the date and time of the public hearing. The date and time the Planning Commission will consider the request. The Planning Commission may modify, waive, or vary the standard in particular case, and the Planning Commission may impose conditions on such modification, waiver, or variation in which it deems appropriate to further the purpose of these regulations under the following circumstances. Under the number one, upon a determination that the strict application of the standard would not forward the objectives of the ordinance or otherwise serve the public interest. And number two, upon the determination that alternatives proposed by the owner or developer will satisfy the objectives of these regulations, and at least to an equivalent degree. The request includes 10 proposed light poles and 10 proposed light poles and 2 light poles that have been relocated from another portion of the property. All light poles are 35 feet in height. Included in your package is the photometric plan, written narrative that was mailed to the adjoining property owners. And I will say there may be some discussion on the lighting levels associated with the proposed lights. But the only thing that we have the ability to modify is the actual pole mounting heights. And so this is not a request to have a more maximum or more minimum average foot candles on the property. With that, I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Russ Orson to review the photometric details and the details of the light itself. Yes, so the report included that the request includes 10 proposed lights and 2 light poles that have been relocated. So, and I can briefly go over that. So in your package, and we have full-size copies if you need it, the proposed light poles are associated with, stop sharing. The lights that just get everywhere into, this is the shop associated with the truck stop. And then the lights that we are considering, the new poles we are considering are located around this side, and then turn around to go to this new parking lot area. Since that time, there has been 2 poles that were relocated from an existing area that were located here and here, and then I think 4 total light poles that were installed here at the 25-foot level.
Do they have the?
Yes, they do. Yes.
Photometric.
Mhm.
So when you look at that, you kind of see what look like contours, but they're actually the illumination level. So you can see the 10 on the outside, the very
small
Mhm.
circles, and then you can see the four largest ones that are in a row. Those are existing, and they currently have 2 lights on them, and we're adding 2 lights on them for a total of 4. And then the 2 by themselves are the ones that were apparently relocated at some point. I don't know when that point was. Within the last year.
Within the last, I think, 3 years, I would guess.
3 years or something. 5 years.
I've been waiting for this to come up for 5 years, so.
Well, here it is.
Thank God.
Here it is. So, yeah, so we not to play up, but you guys had seen the expansion of the parking lot.
And that would be worthwhile, because I understand you have extremely small photometric plan there. So what I will do, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to pull this up, and we're going to fast forward.
So it's kind of built out the Bobby's parking lot capacity for this area, and he had some trouble last fall out at the far edges, and there was stuff getting stolen.
There's a total of 14 lights, 4, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13,
A
14.
total of 16, I guess, because it's 10 plus 4 plus 2.
Maybe
and he got a little ahead of himself. He bought his light bulbs and whatnot.
Another one. What is the waiver exactly? What is it supposed to be?
So it's a very odd part of our ordinance that we might change when we do our ordinance. Yeah. But somebody, and maybe, I don't know who it was, maybe it was Bob or you, or somebody foresaw that a mounting height of 25 feet in an area with trucks, where the trucks are so tall, the light just gets cut off.
Right.
And so it doesn't do a very good job. So somebody foresaw that and put in the ordinance that
It's be 35 feet.
that for truck intensive uses, I think it says that you guys can grant a waiver for higher heights.
Okay.
It's worded kind of bulky the way it's worded.
So the actual ordinance is, the exemption language is in 1303.13 D, outdoor industrial operations or operations involving significant large truck traffic may receive a waiver of one or more of the provision of this ordinance if the landowner if the owner demonstrates that the operation of the facility will be unduly hampered by the lighting installed in accordance with this ordinance.
Okay.
You can see from the photometrics that we don't illuminate anybody anywhere except for on our site.
Right.
So, yeah. So I have a feeling where Roberts might be going is with flare. But as far as illuminating off-site, we don't close to illuminate at all.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? No? I have a question. You've got down here, consider the information provided, receive public comment, and if there is consensus. So did we receive public comment?
We could receive public comment. I mean, Mr. Orson wrote a notice to all the adjoiners, including across the road. So while this is not a bona fide public hearing, generally
We could
speaking, we
comment,
would
send in
would
the-
allow public comment.
Okay.
Historically speaking, I should
Besides
say.
ourselves, I think there were 3. Actually, there are only 2 adjoiners, but 1 across the street. So we said 3 notices.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions up here?
Oh, the only thing I've got to say, and the 2 poles that got moved off Yellow Freight property. They're 35 foot. They got moved, and I brought them to numerous people's attention over the last 5 years that they were out of compliance, to no avail. So I've been a little irritated with that. The poles were moved, and the lights are sitting out here like this. Okay, where the ordinance clearly states that they've got to be like this. We got 4 other poles that got added on this property that are 25 foot. So why didn't we go down the path? However many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, when they got added on, and go, they're not tall enough. We need to put 35 foot ones in. 25 foot ones were good then. So now we're going to come back and say we got to have 35s now. That's my question. Because, I mean, we've got, every light on that property has been replaced, and every light on that property has been replaced with LED lights. And every light on that property and the whole truck stop have been, and they're all sitting there like this. And I get more complaints. I hear more people complain about the lights and the lights going up in the out on other people's property and up in the air from the truck stop and from Ray Fiend than enough. And so I've talked with Chris, talked with Sam numerous times, talked with Chris numerous times about what we can do to get the lighting in compliance with what our lighting ordinance is. If nothing else, just where instead of setting out like this, where they're pointing out and hitting the interstate, other people's property, where they're turned straight down like you should be. So this is where I've got a little, I got a little heartburn over the 2 poles getting moved and being out of compliance for the last 5 years and nobody saying or doing anything about it. And then 25-foot poles were good enough to, when we put the other 4 poles in, but now they're not.
A whole lot for Bobby for the last 10 years, but this is my first deal with lighting. Do lighting. In fact, I just learned how to do photometric mapping.
Russ, can you come up and speak?
Just learned how to do the photometric mapping so we can do this in-house instead of having it done out of house. So I don't know the history of it and whatnot. And I think that your ordinance is clear that it's really not clear actually, your ordinance. But I think your ordinance does say that the fixtures are supposed to be more or less horizontal to the ground. I sent pictures today from Chris. I just happened to be going out to Greenhouse Village. So I took pictures of the Rockbridge Sheriff's Office, and that's Rockbridge County. That's Rockbridge County, and those things are lighting the whole world up. But that's ours.
I'm not saying that there aren't more lights in this county that aren't in compliance, but I'm saying we've got to start someplace.
I'm saying the ones we own, we don't even do that. But I think that we have every leg to stand on to have Bobby redirect those things.
I mean, to me, that would go a long ways, and in doing that, we can start moving forward through the county and getting some things done on that end. But I know
Got a
those
lot of
aren't the only
complaints
lights.
on Lincoln Road because of the Ford dealership. You know, it's lighting up the whole field over there, you know, and I mean, so we got a lot of light issues we need to
Well,
deal with.
Just somebody to put more lights in the school.
And I know for a fact people are replacing the incandescents or old metal halide bulbs with LEDs, and nobody in the county's known. So I know that for a fact. So it's something that we need to look at, we need to address. I fly over enough country and have flown over enough this country to see what lighting does from up in the sky. And you can tell what lights are turned down and what aren't in a hurry.
I obviously can't tell Bobby what to do, but I'll help take care of that.
I know you're looking at me like you want to say something. So
I'm wondering how we deal with that on this issue. You're coming here for a waiver for the new poles. You know, do you say, yeah, we're going to grant a waiver as long as you do ABC? I mean,
We put it into the narrative. I think I put a sentence in the narrative that says we will do that.
you're going to redirect those 4 lights?
I think so.
The 35-foot poles that Bobby purchased.
Written narrative that are mailed to the
horse,
journal.
he puts the cart before the horse all the time. So that's the way
I
it works.
totally get that 25 feet is not tall enough when you got a truck that's, you know, going to block out the light. So I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, when they get stacked up, I'm sure it does. I'm sure that is a problem. But, you know, legal height is 13.6.
Yep.
So you are above it,
What is
but
15?
when you do stack it up, if you don't have it close enough, it's not going to shed.
You're 12 foot above it, so you've got enough lights in there. they'll
Okay.
shine down.
So,
Especially
but
newer
that's-
lights with LED
Yeah.
lights.
right, if I may, the narrative that I wrote, and Chris and I worked on it, the last sentence of the second last paragraph. As part of this application, the owner agrees to reconfigure any of the aforementioned existing lighting fixtures that are not directed straight down to be directed straight down.
Yeah. And that's just on this property,
That's it.
not the rest of the truck.
That's right.
We've got one piece of the puzzle is what we got.
Right. Well, piece that's dealing with the piece that we're dealing with.
I understand. Well, I understand, but I'm,
Well, I mean, to me, that's a little bit of, well, I really don't know how I should word that, but I don't like it when somebody comes to me and says, I'm going to be in compliance if you grant this for me, when you should have already been in compliance. That does bother me, Russ. But I get it and I understand it. And I will say those lights, I don't know what's out there now. I really honestly don't, but lighting adjustment, that's kind of a fluid situation. You have to stay on that, because not only they certainly will droop more than they should. And I'm not taking up for anybody. When I set a light, I set it a little high with anticipation that is going to happen over time. But
I hear what you're saying about the fixing it, but Chris and I were talking. Chris says, this is so dang hard to enforce.
it is.
County, and I said, well, Chris, let me help you out. Let me make, as part of this, let's say we agree to do that.
No, I appreciate that. I do. Yeah. No. And I know coming from you that it wasn't, but I do find it a little troubling that.
And I would just like to add, with the existing lights, we've had multiple discussions with this particular property, other properties in the county that we talked about tonight, and others that we haven't. With that being said, the application would only be for the mounting heights. I have not had an opportunity to confirm that our lighting levels, we've talked about it, our lighting levels are good. So the only waiver we're having tonight is the actual pole heights. The other caveat to that statement is that I agree that I've always agreed that there's been one concern that there's not enough light on the parking lot. And that has never been an issue. That we've never said that there is not enough, or there's too much light on the parking lot. It's the whole direction of it and the glare. And so obviously, as you start going 90 degrees down, you have less parking area that you're lighting, but you also have the less lighting pollution. So it's not an issue of too much or too little light on the actual parking lot. It's the glare, if you will.
Glare and the light going on the other property or going up on the interstate. That's a part of this, mate. We got it. That's why I'd like to see us, if we address this, and maybe we can work towards something else down the road. I mean, if Chris can, but I mean, I know that that's fixed to.
And when we originally talked to Mr. Bergstresser about this particular lighting level, about these particular lights and lighting behind the garage, I can remember stating that I hope we take this as an opportunity, that this exercise will be an opportunity to see how the light on the actual parking lot would work versus the other issues that we've had. So I hope it truthfully, it's for staff, it's a learning experience of what far as for staff is where we were and where it's gonna go type thing.
Thank you, Russ.
So it's with the board now to make a recommendation.
No, this one, weirdly enough, the way I'm reading this, it's a modification waiver, et cetera, through the regulations may be granted by the planning commission. So I don't think
Basically, we have to either approve or deny the waiver. So we need
yes.
a motion to approve the waiver or a motion to deny the waiver.
Yes. And Am I misreading that, Ms. Huffman? Do you agree that I mean, it's,
I agree.
yeah,
I was just adding to the sample motion.
I'm with you. And we actually, well, I won't go there. We had this waiver, we had similar language in another proposed ordinance that was with the planning commission, but in redoing this with the planning commission playing advisory role in just about everything other than site plan, I also do find it unusual that I'm uncertain what happens after this. If it was denied, is there appeal process? And there's a lot of work
So
to be
if
done.
it's
with it.
approved here, it doesn't then go to the Board of
No, ma'am.
Supervisors.
That's what I'm
it.
trying to
It's
say.
just here.
Yes, yes.
If it's denied here, they may be able to approve.
I'm uncertain what happens.
Do we need to add in, this directed straight down to be directed straight down?
Well, I think Vicky took care of that over here in the approved the modification subject to and in accordance with Perkins and Orson narrative dated January 11th, 2022, revised March 3rd, 2022. Is that what you added there at the end? Vicky was saying that the narrative that Perkins and Orson had added, that it
Be in compliance with the lighting ordinance.
subject to and in accordance with Perkins and Orson's narrative dated January 11th, 2022, revised March 3rd, 2022. So his
But that only covers what is in that narrative
In this
in
narrative.
terms of agreeing to adjust the direction of those lights.
To be in compliance with the existing ordinance. Correct?
That's right.
At an angle, 90-degree angle, yes.
Yeah.
Which would be in compliance with existing ordinance. But it doesn't say that. It just says 9 degrees. That's all it says. That's why I'm asking that. If it needs to be.
It doesn't say, so if you want to include that as well,
Do
it
we
would
need
need
to?
to be specified.
Do we need to? You think we need to?
Yes.
I mean, it's, the ordinance is what it is. I mean, why do we need to restate that? Of course, we expect it to be in the ordinance, I mean, to be in compliance.
Straight down, it doesn't say 90 degrees.
What does it say?
Horizontal,
Just 90 degrees.
which would be with whatever the grade on the parking lot is or whatever it might be.
Okay. Kimberly?
Or is he going to read it? I don't want to interrupt if you're going to read something.
No, I was just going over the exactly, there's some stuff about line of sight, glaring sources, individual 5 feet away, that type of thing. But I think it's clear. I think that it's clear in here that not directed, that fixtures that are not directed straight down to be directed straight down. So I think the interpretations, we're on the same page of the interpretation of that.
So we're okay with just using the narrative? Do I need to
Yes, in
specify?
my opinion,
Do I need to
yes.
specify straight down or we're good?
Or
We're
would
good
it be
because
more clear instead of referring to another thing to just say?
Well, I mean, it's
in compliance
referring
with
to
the
his
ordinance?
narrative, which is stating the facts of what they said they were going to do with the 2 poles and then the other 4 existing. And then it's talking about the narrative itself.
Saying, rather than refer to a narrative, isn't he just saying the same thing, which is we're going to be in compliance with the ordinance, whatever that number is? Instead of saying we're going to refer to the narrative that's going to be installed pertaining to the.
I'm
ordinance.
comfortable with referencing the narrative.
Are you guys comfortable with that? You kind of want to reference the ordinance.
I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable either way, but just looking back on it later, it might be, if it was specifically stated, it might be a little more handy.
That's kind of my thought too. Are we going to have the ordinance? I mean, are we going to have the letter, the
Yep,
narrative?
yep, it-
Not as handy as having the ordinance specifically stated, in my opinion.
So what just to peel it off, what the ordinance says is no line of sight, a glaring light source, direct view of the bulb or reflective surface of the fixture shall be observed by individuals standing 5 feet or more outside the adjacent public property or on a public right of way. This observation should be viewed in a position that is level with or higher than the ground below the fixture. So with that's pretty hard to hire a boom truck every time you're trying to do a zoning determination if someone's in compliance to try to get above the grade or below the grade. It also has to do with light trespass, 0 foot one, and I'm unaware of the more than 1.5 0.1 foot candle on residential zone property or 0.5 foot candle of business zone. It actually doesn't say anything about industrial zone, measured on a vertical plane from the property line. Then that's,
Needs to be rewritten.
I'll tell you this. I mean, I'll pull the plan down further. The exemption language is, in my opinion, the exemption language that we're dealing with right now is somewhat problematic. So they're, yes.
You're looking at it from the side.
Right.
It's going straight down. It's not going to your eye.
You can't do much
Parallel
more
to
than
the
that.
ground.
Straight down, not like this.
Yes.
They gotta be that. And
So
that's-
I think, again, I'm comfortable
Okay.
with the language.
Narrative is actually better.
The ordinance.
Okay, let's go. Go for it.
Okay, I make a motion that the planning commission determined, one, that the strict application of the standard would not forward the objectives of the lighting regulation or otherwise serve the public interest, and two, the alternatives proposed would satisfy the objectives of the lighting regulations at least to the equivalent degree, and approve the modification subject to and in accordance with the Perkins and Orison narrative dated January 11th, 2022, revised March 3rd, 2022.
You have a motion?
Approved.
I will second.
Have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you guys for all your work tonight. That was yeoman's work.
Thank you. So we will adjourn. Do we have to have a motion?